Hey, folks, this is Shawn Pardazi, the host of the Patriot Jihadi Show. In our first episode, an actual podcast episode, there's three of us who are Middle Eastern. I know you can't tell. Obviously, with the dip of snuff, you can't tell. And we're going to talk about our journey from where we started in the Middle East, came to the United States, and all of us either served or still serving in law enforcement. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce the first guest. His name is Khashayar. Now, if you're a Persian and you're watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For everyone else, he goes by Shawn, just like I do. And the second guest
Yeah.
is Abdi. He just goes by Abdi because he can't shorten a three-letter word any more than it is. Right?
4 letters.
Four-letter. See, not enough coffee. Not enough coffee. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves, give you a little background about when they came to the States, share some personal details as far as what it took to assimilate, and we're going to address some of the challenges that we all have collectively faced over the years in law enforcement. In addition to challenges of learning how to speak English, assimilating, and why we chose to get into law enforcement. Fair enough? Pasha, you want to start?
Yeah, thank you for having me here today, Shaheen. I guess this will be my first podcast too, so it's we're in the same boat. And I go by Sean. That's my middle name. Kashar is too hard for everybody to say. It's like I figured out like whenever I say Kashar, they're like, "How you say that? How you spell it?" And they're like alphabet. So just call me Sean. Simple as that. And I actually looked up the definition of Sean. It means a gift from God. So so yeah, talking about law enforcement and you brought me back to when I was a kid. I grew up. I was born in Tehran and I moved here when I was 8ish, and where I lived when I was going to first grade there. Well, see, we had like a little police station next to my house.
There's the Ajan
Yeah,
police or
and
the Sepah
no,
police?
this
The
Pastor. So
oh yeah,
yeah, they
Sepah Pastoran.
oh yeah, because that was like where I live by the Daraki. I don't know if you know
Yeah.
what that is. There's a tourist. I mean, it's big mountains, and everybody comes on the weekends to go like walk and eat ice cream and do stuff like that. Well, that uh, next to my house, we had the station there, like literally like probably a mile from my house. So like every time I walk down my house, I would see these guys hanging out and they would say hi to me. And I would talk to them and they show me their guns and their radios and their cars. And imagine like I'm like 5 years old, right? And I think these guys like they're so cool because they're in uniform. And then on the weekends they'll put like checkpoints and I will hang out with them at the checkpoint. Like they'll be searching cars, looking for dope, looking for anything illegal, and I'm like right next to them.
This is why he got into law enforcement. He was like, "That's some cool shit."
It was, and the cool thing was like these guys became like my friends, so they would like pick me up from school. The patrol car would be passing by, and they see me waiting at the bus stop, and they're like, "Hey, Kasha, come on," and they'll give me a ride. And in Iran you can't drink,
Right.
so I remember it was my uncle's 50th birthday, and he had a big party in Iran, and there were people drinking and stuff. And I remember we had to go drop somebody off, and on their way back, they had checkpoints, and
Oh,
they stopped people when they wanted to search, right? And one of the cops saw me, and he's like, "Oh, that's
gosh, that's
that's
Khashayar.
let him go through." And my uncle was like happy because like over there, if you get caught drinking,
Oh,
it's
180 lashes.
yeah, they don't play, and that was the time, like, they didn't play.
What year was this?
This was, man, in the 80s, probably, yeah, 80s, late 85, 86, something
Oh,
like
this
that.
is after the
Oh,
like
yeah,
way after the
yeah,
revolution.
no, because the revolution was 1971, right? not
79.
79.
Yeah, 79.
79. And so this is like
Like
the
6 years later.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they're very strict at that time.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah,
they
yeah.
didn't
Well,
play.
they've already built their force, and they're kind of confident in what they're doing. It wasn't like at the beginning when they first started, they were trying to get people together and train people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I was there. Yeah, I saw it all happen. I was in the protest. My God, America. And I'm like, why the fuck are we cussing America? I was born in America. Why am I cussing my own people? But it's like shit, everybody else do it. I better do it too.
Yeah, so you know how it is. So, but they didn't. They took those offenses real serious. Like I've seen people on the streets get beat because of it, like
Oh yeah.
lashed out. And I mean, as a kid, you see that stuff, and
Mhm.
like I remember they were, they had like when they do like sacrifices and stuff when somebody came back from the war,
Oh yeah.
because
Yeah.
that was the time of
Meh.
the war too, and they would cut the goat's head or
Dude,
the cow, whatever. And I'm like, as a 5, 6 year old seeing this stuff, wow,
you
and
see the goat
yeah,
on the
and
Probably
ground.
befriended a goat or
it's
a
like
sheep,
shit.
and
It's like, man, these
all of a sudden
people.
he comes out and he sees him cutting the head off.
Hold on, this is gonna get good. Let's get him a second to introduce himself real quick because I got a feeling
Uh,
as we're telling stories, we're gonna bounce off of each other because you just talked about the goat, and I remember the first time I saw that in my life, and I was like, right. But now I see a goat, it's like,
yeah, 'cause
no
we
big
don't
deal.
see
Yeah.
camels.
Yeah,
There's no camels in Tehran, but we see goats. We see like cows and seeing beheaded and stuff, and
right.
it's
Yeah,
like that's just a
it
normal
builds.
day.
Well, it builds like a tolerance level.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Okay, so Abdi, you want to kind of give a little introduction of who you are? I know. So before we get started, even though we're filming this, we're at Rivas Restaurant in Houston, Texas. For those of you who are around Houston, Texas, you look up Rivas. It's on Missouri Street. It's at the kind of at the corner of Montrose and Westheimer, and it is the street that runs right next to Nico Nico's. Best Italian restaurant you can find in Houston. Highly recommend you to go over there and eat. As a matter of fact, the people who own it are our people, right?
Hmm.
But they speak Italian too. So in case you want to speak Italian, they speak Italian. So that's want to say shout out to them for letting us be here. So Abdi, as you're listening to him talk, his face is going to be distorted, and so is his voice. And the reason is both of these guys are active law enforcement. Now, Sean, it works for a local agency, so he's in the public. He wears a uniform, so we don't worry about covering his face and stuff. But Abdi, he works in an investigative position, so sometimes that requires him to do things where his identity doesn't need to be revealed because of his sometime undercover capacity. So, if you want to kind of introduce yourself, Abdi over there, he looks like I'm going to call him Sheikh Abdi.
Yeah,
Yeah, you think
it
so?
looks like a
Huh?
goat.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sheikh
All
Abdi.
I'm missing is the turban, so get more official.
Him over there with the turban. We're gonna put you a little black and white kafio on your head, right? And me with a cowboy hat and say, "Hello, welcome to our podcast."
Everyone welcome.
Everyone, welcome. This is a UN Middle Eastern Aid Summit. We will fix the problem in Middle East, no problem.
We sure will.
My name is Abdi. I was born in Iran, Tehran. I was there until 1986, or I'm sorry, 1984. I moved to Germany. We were there for about 2 years. In '86, my dad got the call, and for all of our paperwork got completed to come to the United States. So we came here in 1986. So we've been here ever since.
Now, how old were you when you left Iran?
5.
5. So both of you left like you were like toddlers when the revolution happened.
I was born 2 days after the revolution.
Oh, Bache Engalobi.
I was
Yes.
2 years after.
Well,
2
and
years. Yeah.
2 years.
3 years after.
yeah, but I used to go. The last time I went back was 2006, and I used to go back either every year or every 2 years visiting, and we would stay for 2 months or 3 months
Really?
at each time. So
In Tehran?
yeah,
Okay.
my dad was from the northern part of Iran, from Bab al Sar.
Come on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we would go on trips there, and we'd go into the Caspian Sea, and it was They had a couple of villas, and
Oh, that's a nice
oh man,
place,
the
man.
view was
What a
awesome.
weather, dude.
Yeah.
It whoops California's ass,
Beautiful.
no doubt.
So, uh, and unfortunately, they don't maintain it the way they should be maintaining it.
Well, true.
So, but it definitely nice areas, like Sean had said, the mountains in Iran. I forgot what the one of them was called, where you have to walk like 2 hours up, and there's a restaurant up there.
Well, that's where I'm talking about. That
Is it Dochar?
no,
I don't know. I haven't been to
so
that mountain. That's too much. Bubba, I'm a midget. I can't walk that far. By the time I get there, I'm gonna go to the hospital.
Yeah, everyone goes all the way to the top, and they have a nice restaurant there, and you get to sit down, relax.
that's that I can. So you
Yeah,
walk, you go to
and then
at the end it goes to the main cool. You know,
Ooh,
the
yeah,
main.
Main Mountain. Yeah. No, I know where you're talking about. I just haven't actually been there physically. So, so you came here when you were
7.
7, okay, and then that was in 1986,
Yeah,
and you came when you were
I turned 8.
8.
So yeah, I was in 4th grade here.
Yeah, so you came when you were 8. I came when I was 15, and that was in 87. So you guys,
my brother was 13,
right? So
so
he went to school there for a few years.
yeah,
Okay. Did you go to school there?
just kindergarten.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it.
And you didn't? Did you?
Yeah, I went like 3 years.
3 years. So elementary.
Yeah, and the schools there is way different.
Oh, I know.
Like I remember in 1st grade, their test wasn't like multiple choice. I
No.
had to memorize all the tests and stand in front of the class and give the answers.
Yeah.
And I came here, I didn't speak English, and when we moved to Houston,
Both of you
this
moved to Houston
yeah,
when you came here?
yeah, we came here.
You know where I moved to?
Where?
Alabama. But I
Wow.
went from Esfahan, from Tehran. I'm from Esfahan, which everybody calls Dehat. I even went to a Worth Dehat. For those of you who are watching, Dehat is like a village. Okay, it's like really like like a town of I don't know, 2,000 people, right, with nothing near it, right? Dehati. So I moved to Alabama, and so there was so you guys came to a metropolitan area.
Yeah, but Houston, I mean, it's grown
Oh, I
too
know.
big. I
Yeah.
mean,
I remember when I-10 was only 3 lanes.
yeah,
I remember I-10 was 2 lanes, especially Katy Freeway.
Yeah,
Like when you go past
and we had
Gessler,
a
or actually,
railroad on Old Katy Road
yeah, when you went past once you went past Antoine, was it Antoine? What's
Yeah,
the first exit
after
when you go
610.
outside of 610?
Silver,
So, and then what's after that?
Antoine.
Antoine. After that, it was 2 lanes
Yeah,
going out and coming in.
mhm.
Yeah, I remember that.
the city has grown so much.
Now you go, it's what, 3 lanes of HOV
2
and
lanes HOV, and then it's got
Like 5 and 5, like
I
10
think
lanes.
no more than that. I think it's got 7 and 7. They've expanded it
2
all the way to
HOV,
the
2 because when we were coming down the HOV lane, I thought there was 3 or 4 lanes in the HOV because
It is.
I think 2 is
Yeah, it's
HOV, and
2
then
and 2 on both sides.
well, yeah,
Yeah,
and then or you could do the Texas tag,
yeah, because you
the
have the
toll
the
yeah.
the HOV, and then you have the Texas tag.
Texas
Yeah,
tag,
so
yeah,
2 and 2.
yeah. Wow, man, what a difference. I remember when you would pass Antoine and you would pass Memorial City Mall, it was nothing but cow pastures after that.
Yeah,
Like if somebody said, "Hey, I live in Katy," it's like, "Ooh, check out dude." Like
It's
it's so
far,
far
yeah,
away right now. You just
yeah,
get on the HOV lane,
yeah.
you're on
yeah.
there
Now
15
there's
minutes.
you'd be lucky to find anything over there,
Oh no.
any open space.
Wow. So
Yeah.
that's yeah. So you guys got to actual come to a metropolitan. See, I came to Houston in '89, or yeah, yeah. I came to Houston because I went to Stratford High School. That's where I graduated from. Right. So I had lived in Alabama for 2 years, and then I came to Houston for the last 2 when I graduated. Wow. But I'd already started speaking English by the time I came here, and had that Alabama accent, real drawl going like that.
But the thing is, growing up over there in Iran, it was during the wartime too.
Yeah.
So the the schools, I remember, like, that's another thing. Like when I came here, because guys and girls were separated. Like we didn't go to
Right.
the same school. And I remember every day you had to go to school, and then they'll check your nails, and then like check your uniform, and then like if you were out of ordinance, they make you stick out your hand and they hit you with a ruler,
Mm,
and them
no.
teachers, man, they didn't play. And like if they so during, and also it's during the bombings. So
Yes.
like we're in class, all of a sudden sirens going, yeah, and they're like
Brrr.
pull us and take us to bunkers, and the same thing at the house too. I remember like clear as a day, like one night, it was actually during the day. It was me and my mom and my brother there, and we heard this loud bomb. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
was so loud, the explosion broke out our windows.
Mm-hmm.
And it got like from my house to where it got hit was probably about 10 miles.
Right.
Where I told you, like, I have a school where I would get picked up by
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
patrol
yeah.
cars. Like going up in the mountains there, it's this big area that they hit, but it had a devastating effect for all
Yeah,
around
the
me.
aftershock.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was terrible,
The
man.
blast radius. Yeah.
And then coming to here in America is like you don't speak English, but then you go to school and then you're like, oh, boys and girls are together, and then you're not hearing bomb sirens. It's,
like
it's like
a,
this is nice.
not only you're culturally shocked, you're
Oh
linguistically
yeah.
shocked, and you're at school going, "What in the hell is going on? This is some easy ass shit, right?"
Hmm. Like they don't have you're not memorizing anything. It's like
Let me tell you, when I wrote the book, The Patriot Jihadi, right? I have the stories about like when the protests were going on, like during Angola, and I was like 7 years old. So I would sneak out of the house and tell mom, mama, mira, football básico, right? Or go to the kuche, to the street to play with the guys, and then I would sneak out, like go to Darrows and Dolat in
uh,
Esfon, and then would always gather all these college kids, man. I talk about it in the book where I'm just like, I see the pictures of like Carter and you know what I'm saying, and the US flag, and everybody's like, Enrico, and I'm just looking around going, yeah, I don't think I want to say that because I was born here, right? So I was born here, but then I went there when I was 3 months old. So I'm like, Americans. And I'm like, I'm not going to cuss my own country. But at the same time, if you understand the culture, and that's what I try to tell people, is a lot of Middle Easterners, they're not going to say anything when something's going on because the way the culture works, if you don't say anything, it's kind of like, should I have them, sonny? Yeah, shut up. And for the people who are watching, I'm speaking in Farsi. It's almost like they put that psychological pressure on you, right? And if you don't participate, then the word gets around that your family is not supportive. So then all of a sudden the whole neighborhood turns against you, right? That you know what I'm saying? So and that's the kind of things that I had to actually endure myself. You guys were still too young. They didn't expect a 2-year-old to be out there doing that. You know what I'm saying? You're probably over there just excited because there's a guy with a uniform with the
yeah,
guns, and
man.
you're like, holy shit, this is cool, GI Joe. But but yeah. So when you came here, and we'll start with you, Sean. When you came here, how long do you think it took you to learn how to speak English? And what
So
what did you have to do to expedite the process?
so when I went to school, I didn't speak English, right? I
Right.
just people smile and I smile back at them, and so they put me in ESL, right?
You're in there with a bunch of Mexicans.
English is a second language, right? And I'm like, man, these people around me, they're pretty cool. Like, we all smiling at each other.
But nobody knows what the
Nobody's
hell you're saying.
they didn't know either. Like, they didn't speak English, right?
Was there a lot of Hispanics?
Man, that
You don't even
I don't
remember.
remember. It's
Yeah.
been so long ago, but I remember like the teachers, the Spanish teacher, the ESL teachers, they were really nice teachers,
Right.
because they knew like this poor kid speak
He's
any
kind of
language.
slow, so
He's
So
kind of slow.
yeah, uh, so I learned English like in like elementary, right? I pick it up pretty quick.
Right.
And then in middle school, I started having friends that were from Mexico. So then I picked up Spanish.
Spanish.
So then I was like, man, I'm speaking English and Spanish.
Dude, that's like me, but at 15 years old and 16, 17 years old. It's funny you say that. We're sharing this story, and I haven't heard this. This we just talked on the phone. It's like, hey, you want to do a podcast? Because I think it's cool for us to do a podcast, especially the first one. And now you're telling me this, and I remember when I was working at Hungary's after a memorial, right? And I was still trying to speak English, but all the busboys were Mexican and all the cooks were Mexican. So as I'm trying to learn how to speak English in like Southern accent, right? Texan accent, I'm now picking up Spanish in like
Mhm.
true Mexican accent, right? So I see what you're giving me flashbacks. It's like, oh shit, I remember that, you know?
So I go to Mexico a lot, and when I'm there, they're like, "What do you? Why?" Like I try to, I'm speaking. And they're like, they get mad sometimes, like like why you don't want to speak more Spanish? You're not proud of your country.
Because they think you're Mexican.
Yeah,
Dude,
and
same here.
I'm like, no, yo soy Iranian, and they're like, oh, Iran, oh,
And then
okay,
they
and then
go,
they're like,
terrorist.
no, they're like, yeah. I mean, you know what? Nah, I don't think I ever heard that in Mexico. They're like, wow, that's cool. Like, kind of, they don't have a lot of
Well, because I don't have
Persians.
exposure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they don't have exposure there. But I never had that problem over there. But now I had that over here. Shit.
Do you get that from Mexicans here?
The kids that we're growing up with, they're my best friends. I mean,
Right.
we joke around and stuff. Like,
No, I'm talking about like when you're at work, like when you had to arrest somebody,
oh,
and somebody goes, "Oh, I thought because they think you're Mexican," and then you tell them, "No, man, I'm from the Middle East," and they go, "Oh, you terrorist."
nah, maybe early on in my career,
Yeah.
maybe 20 years ago, because I started right like a couple years after 9/11.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I went in the academy, and like in the academy, it was like I'm the only Persian, like, because this is not what Persians do. We go like become doctors or attorneys or
Oh, Baba, I have to
like
tell you.
architect. Yeah,
Mohandes,
yeah.
doctor, vakil.
So if you don't do those, you're like, what? And my mom came from like she's all about education. She has a PhD, and she's like, you're gonna become a doctor, right? And then like I'm in HOSA and shit in high school, and I'm like, and this is not even my passion. Like I'm in HOSA, and like, so I end up working. I get a job, right? At 16, I'm working like selling shoes, like Al Bundy, right?
You said, "Hey, hold on. When you take your naps, do you stick your hand in your pants like Al Bundy?"
I love my naps. Them naps save me. I got 5 kids. They save me. But
You
yeah,
were
he
taking
always
the
messes up my nap. Abdi always calls when I'm napping. He's like, he has all day to call me. You know when he decides to call me? When I'm taking a nap. So then he blows up my phone. I put on do not disturb anyways. And then when I call him back, he's already, trying to.
calls back at the wrong time.
No, he calls at the
There's a
wrong time.
reason why he gets called at the time that he's getting called at.
You could call like a normal human being, like 8 to 5.
This is
But when he's in
Persian
court,
drama,
when he's at work, he can't answer because he's at work.
Mhm.
right?
But anyways, going back to what I was saying is about this learning Spanish and English. It actually like uh, no, fast forward to I'm working selling shoes, right?
Right.
And there was this one guy that was walking around. He dressed nice and buff, and I was like, man, this guy is like always in the break rooms. Like he just like where's it? Nobody watches him. Like what he does. Come to find out, he's like the loss prevention, like
Oh yeah,
loss prevention
yeah,
guy,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I was like, man, this guy's got a cool job. So I told him, hey, what was his name? Charles. That was his name, Charles. I was like, Charles.
Was he like an off-duty cop that was working loss
No, no, no.
prevention?
He
He
was
was
like a
actually
civilian, like
okay,
yeah. So
like an
he
employee.
yeah,
Okay,
employee. So he worked for the company as
right,
a loss prevention. I was like, I want to do this. I don't want to sell shoes anymore.
right.
And he's like, well, you got to be 18 to do this. So I turned 18. I was like, hey, I want to do this. And he's like, look, we don't, there's like, our store is a smaller store, but in Sugarland is a bigger store. Let me call up there. And he called up there, and the manager was like, actually, we're looking for somebody. So I did a transfer there. And man, that opened up my life to another thing because now I'm interacting with law enforcement
Yeah, when
and
you catch a shoplifter, you're
I'm
having to
calling
call the
them.
PD or whoever to come
Yeah,
and take care of it, and now you're getting more exposure to the LE world.
yeah. So I'm friends with them, and next thing I know, I'm doing Citizens Police Academy,
Right.
with them. And
Citizens on patrol.
no, it was like we have those Citizen Police Academy. You do like shooting, you get to learn about what
Like once a
cops.
week, you go like once a week, and they have
Yeah,
a
like
meeting like Wednesday night from
yeah,
6 to 8.
yeah.
Yeah,
I was the youngest one in there. Everybody else, like
old people.
old people in
Yeah.
there. Like I'm like, man, this is fun stuff. So I decided that's what I wanted to do, and that's when I got in law enforcement. I was like 23 years old.
Right.
So and in the academy, yeah, I mean, it was a couple years after 9/11, and everyone was like, "Oh, you're a terrorist. You're, all kinds of stuff." And I would hear it like all the time, right?
Did you go to academy with an agency or you did one of those self sponsorships?
No, it was a self sponsorship because when I started, it
Did you go
like
to Houston Community College
no, it was
down south, Fort Bend?
no, it was
I know there's several of them here.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was Lone Star,
Okay.
yeah, and
Lone Star was around then.
but all our instructors, they just had started the program, and all our
Oh, okay.
instructors were actually from big agencies like
Was that was
the
in what?
main
2001, 2002,
three.
2003.
Yeah, and our main instructor, he was from the sheriff's office, and he had retired from the sheriff's office, and he was
He's like
instructor.
the
So
academy coordinator.
no, well, at that time there was one guy above him,
All right.
but he was the main instructor for
Everything.
everything,
The
and then
curriculum.
curriculum,
Right.
correct. Now, if we did like you know like emergency driving or shooting, there were different instructors
They
that
would bring them in.
but most of them like they were from DPS or from HCSO,
Right.
sheriff's office,
Right.
and so it was it was I don't say it challenging because they were like we were friends, like we're just doing they were saying it to bust our balls, like uh they would say like he's a terrorist gonna blow us up and all this, but that shit would get old too.
It
It's
does.
like,
Yeah.
bro, come on, man. I mean, but I learned like not to let it get under my skin because at the end of the day, we're all in the same business.
Right.
We're trying to catch the bad guys, right, and protect the public. And so that law enforcement thing has always been with me. I think that's why I even think about it now. Is when I was a kid to see those guys in uniform, I was fascinated by it. Like
Right.
my kids don't come to me and look at my uniform and my taser and my gun and be like, "Wow, like can I see
Right.
daddy?" Maybe when they're little for a little bit, but not like the obsession I had.
Well, I
And
think when we were younger, you didn't have so many cartoons and you didn't have so many, toys and stuff that
Well, you didn't have
resemble.
the cell phones that they have nowadays.
Yeah, they get the exposure at a
Yeah.
young age, so they don't have that interest anymore because it's almost like become numb to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, in the academy, but those guys became my good friends. To this day, I talk to a lot of them.
Right.
And we still joke around. And it's not like I just shut up and just let them with me either.
Right.
I would say stuff too, right?
Right.
It was like a two-way street.
You
But I
probably
learned in this business, if you have a thin skin, I mean,
Right.
you're in the wrong business.
Yeah. The only time I got the same thing, and I'm sure you probably had to deal with the same shit to some extent also, right? Did
I
you go let's go with your like how did you what interested you into get into law enforcement?
just growing up, just seeing what every now and then I would see like the police at the school coming into the schools, having the canine, um, sniff out the lockers, see if anybody's got any contraband. Um, Cops show how funny it was, some of the things that they experience. If you think there's someone dumb, there's always someone more dumb that you come in contact with, and that actually drew my attention more than becoming like a doctor or lawyer or engineer or something that your parents expect you to become. And it was, and at the beginning, it was kind of hard to convince my dad to, because
I can just hear it now.
they wanted me to at least to think about it. So, about it was around 2005, 2006. I had already made my decision, and in 2009, I went to the police academy
Now, did
and
you go to an agency
HCC,
academy? You went to HCC? Was that when I was over there off of Cowart? Had they moved up to northeast?
Northeast.
Northeast, yeah.
Yeah.
And when I went, it was on Cowart
Yeah.
by the
So
the Budweiser plant.
yeah, it's still
that-
that's still the Northeast one. It's
Yeah,
still
but
there.
I'm talking about this was the one where it was like in a very like back behind a neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, because the new
It's like a metal
facility,
building.
they had built a new facility. Their law enforcement school had just been built a couple of years before.
Okay, yeah, you were the
So,
new was Johnny the
Yep.
the coordinator?
Yep.
Yeah, Johnny was my academy coordinator, and then when he
Was he?
became the chief in Hearn, Texas, he says, he calls me up like a week after we graduated, and he says, "Hey, boy." I was like, "Yes, sir." He goes, "You want a job, boy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I mean, I went to the academy. I went back to waiting tables at the Hungries, right? So he calls me up right after Christmas and says, "Hey, man, I'm gonna be the chief over there starting January 1st. If you want to come up, you come up." And I go from Alabama to Houston and then to Hearn,
I
like
think he
5,000 people.
retired there and went somewhere else.
Yeah,
He retired
from the academy.
ACC. Yeah,
Yeah, but dude, he's been around for so damn long.
yeah. There was another one of my other instructors was Galloway,
I didn't meet him.
and then
Remember, I went to the academy in '94. Yeah, '94.
okay.
Yeah.
There was another guy. He had a scar on the left side of his face. I don't know if he was there,
Uh,
but he would always talk about his scar. He went after a suspect that was a fugitive that they were looking for, and the guy had a knife and sliced them, and his whole face was flapping open. And but they
wow.
still got the guy. He said he always says that story every time.
Have you ever listened to Johnny talk about his stories?
No,
Y- They
uh,
call him Snake.
no,
No, I think when he was working, and this is I'm just going by what was said. I think when he was with HPD, I think his numbers were up like big.
yeah,
You know what I'm talking about? His numbers. He remember telling me a story. He said he had got a call, a 911 call, with this lady, calling in to off herself, right? So dispatch sends him over there, and back then they had those big radios, and it didn't work real well, right? So he's pounding on the door saying, "Hey, HPD, open the door," and he's holding his radio up, pulling that antenna out, and he's talking to dispatch, and he hears pow, the shot go off, right? So he's like, "Dang, okay." She went off. I got to go in. So he kicks the door open, walks in. This is him saying this. 600-pound lady on the ground, big lady, right? And she's got she got a little 22 Derringer, right, in her hand. It kind of fell out of her hand, and she's got a little spot right here with like one drip of blood coming out, right? And she's just laying out. So at the time, they didn't have cell phones, right? He said he picked up the phone, and the dispatch was still on the phone with 911. He's like, "Yeah, go ahead and roll ME and all that other stuff, get CID, whoever on the way." And he's like, "Okay, well, I'm gonna call so and so." So he hangs up the phone to call, I guess, whatever station he was working at, call the desk sergeant or whoever it was. He said as he's talking on the phone, he hears, and all of a sudden he turns around and the lady sits back up. He said he dropped the phone and he ran out of the house. Come to find out, she shot herself. Her skull was so big, it just knocked her out. The bullet never penetrated. It went around the skull, and it just lodged between the skin and the skull, and it just knocked her out. So that's why she just got up. He said
wow,
that shit scared him more than anything else. He said all you have to do is turn around and see this big lady just freaking sit up. And when she lets out this air, she said it was like Exorcist. It's like he just freaking took off. Right? I don't know what I would have done. I would have just took all my stuff off, got in the car, and left. I said, "F this shit. I'm not doing this."
screw this.
You know what? That happens though. Like, I work DOAs and like you're by yourself. You're
Yeah.
waiting for the ME to come pick up the body and and you just like doing your report and all of a sudden you hear noises like there's nobody's supposed to be here. I
Yeah.
hope the body's still there.
Well, that's some of that is because of that gas that's
Yeah.
trapped out,
Some
and
of
then it
them
just
will actually sit up too, and it happens even at the morgue.
from the pressure from the gas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they let out they exhale and then they lay back down.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Well, most of the time, like it's been like animals. Like you don't
Right.
know they have cats or dogs, and
Oh,
they're hiding. You see noise like, what is there? Somebody else here?
can you
And then
imagine? You
like
got your laptop sitting on the couch waiting on the ME's office, and you're
you're
just typing
typing, and then you hear this
at the
noise.
kitchen counter, and all of a sudden you hear
their
this.
footsteps in the attic or something.
Oh my god. Oh my god. So you got interested in going to police work because of your exposure at the school, right?
School, cops, just seeing that like watching the news, going after the bad guys. It started to get me more interested into the field.
What happened when you, Sean, when you told your parents you wanted to be a cop? And the reason I'm asking this, we know the reason why, right? And we're going to have Middle Easterners watching this video. We're going to see them, and then we're going to have Americans watching the podcast, right? And they don't understand how the culture of Middle Easterners are, right? From the time you're born, and just to kind of preface it with this, from the time you're born in the Middle East to a Middle Eastern family, it's almost like your path has already been planned and what the hopes are, right? So everything they do from the time you're young until you get to that age to go to college is pretty much pre-planned, and you're supposed to stick to that plan, right? So if you come from a family of doctors, you're expected to get in medicine. Now, if they're all doctors like physicians, you can't go be a nurse because you're making the family look bad. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like you either got to be equal or you got to go more, right? It's that, but it's just the way the culture works. So me personally, I came from my whole family, my mom and dad both in the medical field, right? So, and I'll kind of share this, and then you start like what you had to deal with. I remember when I called my mom, she's over there, and I said, "Mama," she goes, "Chia Shaheen." Like, and for those of you who don't understand, it's like, what is it, Sean? And I said, "خب میرم دیگه police میشم." There's a silence, and then she goes, "Eh, چی میگی میخوای بری آجان بشی?" Like, what are you saying? Because so the term آجان in Farsi is like Paul Blart the mall cop, right? It's not because the police profession in the Middle East is like a peasant profession, right? It's nothing um, that
It's not looked at
requires.
as a professional career.
It's a labor job.
Right.
It's a labor job, and it's usually for people who have never been to college, right? The only time you get any sort of respect is, and you guys understand, is darajat chiye, like what's your rank, right? You have to be like a sartip or team sar, like a lieutenant or a captain or an assistant chief for you to have like at least a certain level of respect from the public. Because if you're just a,
Sarkoros var.
see,
Sarkoros var.
yeah. Yeah, Samador. All the Persians watching this are like, they're talking about Samador. all the Americans are watching. They're like, who the hell is Samador? They're on Google. Who is Samador? For those of you who are going to Google it, it's AGHA. Aga. Okay, not the kh, not the KH, but the GH. So if you want to Google it, Samad, SAMAD, Aga. Okay. So you guys kind of look at it. It's like a little comedian guy over there, right? A legend, yeah. Like
Who
he's
lives
like
in California now?
Is he
been in
really?
California a long time, yeah.
Is he? He's like a modern day Maximini. No?
No.
Well, I'm trying to
Different genres.
different. Well, right, but back then you didn't have
Yeah,
Maximini type,
He's
right?
like the Charlie Chaplin.
Charlie Chaplin. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, he's like the Charlie Chaplin.
Uh-huh.
Look, we know who Charlie Chaplin. 25-year-old cops watching this are like, who the hell is Charlie Chaplin? Like they'd have no clue.
Right.
Anyway, so when I told her that I was becoming a cop, she was like, "Hi, Bob." Imagine, the biting of the index finger and the به کسی نگی ها. اصلا من به همه میگم تو هنوز مدرسه داری میری. تو داری میری دانشگاه میخوای PhD بگیری.
Wow.
Right? It's the whole she doesn't want to tell anybody.
It seems like they're like all programmed together the same,
They
right?
are.
Well, you said the same things I heard. Wow.
Well, the problem is with everything that they've gone through back home, they think it's all the same everywhere else.
That's funny you say that. And I bet you the Persians who are here and they have family over there that are actually working Persians, and I'm not talking about Persians, and no offense to you guys who are watching who are from Beverly Hills and stuff like that. But most Persians who come here, they come get educated and they basically working in a middle class environment until they can make it big. And, not everybody comes here and is able to kick it off real good. If you look at Persians that came in the 60s and 70s, they were able to flourish because the economy was growing. So they spent a little money on investments. They went to school, they got their PhDs, and they were able to grow to a certain level by the late 80s.
They had
early
more
90s.
advantages at that time because
Right.
it wasn't as hard to move up
Exactly.
as it is now.
Exactly. Like back then, for $100,000, they could have bought two of these buildings, turned them into apartment complexes. Hell, now you
Yeah,
want to buy two buildings, turn them into apartment complex.
A
You got to get
couple
a
of
$4 million loan. You know what I'm saying? So you're because the economy has
it's on the
changed.
low end.
Right. Well, here where we're at,
Yeah,
close to Montrose, you better have about 15 million. You want to start out.
yeah,
I'm talking about if you go out there to like Brookshire,
yeah.
right? Way out there. So, but I think, and that's a lot of things. And the reason I'm saying this is it's us having to deal with it family wise. That also rolls over into when you get into like terrorism and people not calling out certain Middle Easterners for doing stupid shit. Is because there is an expectation that you're supposed to have some sort of loyalty, and and it doesn't matter if you're Persian, if you're Iraqi, if you're Kurd, if you're Arab, if you're Pakistani, or if you're Indian. Collectively, it is a very judgmental society. You agree with that? It's a judgmental society. So for us, sharing the fact that we had to like literally go against what the cultural expectations are, like you said, it's almost like everybody has programmed the same way, right? And we're just talking about from a Persian perspective, right? But the other cultures are the same. Now, if they come from a working class family, they're probably not having to deal with that. But you came from a family of PhDs, so they're expecting you to do that. Now, what about you? Like, what kind of problems did you run into?
My dad, he was the typical wanting me to go in towards the medical field. And then when I didn't want to do that anymore, he's like, at least have your options open. Maybe you can go uh, maybe into law or some sort of
Vakid.
yeah,
Yeah.
and some
Right.
sort of engineering. And I was like, but I don't like that. I don't. That doesn't interest me. And this was when I was around 21, 22. He was more on me about that. And then as I got older, in my late 20s to maybe about 30, he started to be more relaxed and wasn't as pushy to get me to not go into that field. So finally, he gave in, and I wanted to go to the military, like to join the Marines, and he definitely didn't want me to go to that because he was afraid we were going to go to war
War,
here.
yeah.
And so I didn't go to the military, but finally he finally accepted me going to the police academy and getting started in the police work. So
Good. Did he show was he proud of you when you graduated or
yeah,
no?
yeah, they attended my graduation. Um, we went out to eat. We had some other family friends show up.
They were
So
Persians too?
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
They didn't come over there and do berim kage narim. Miga madiga do seshu nadarim. And then
No,
they
so
come on. It's not
the
the kinds
family
that come over
friends,
there and then they go behind the scenes and go,
yeah.
Ay bobo, didi
No,
pesare like that.
they were very supportive because the ones that we had, most of the family friends we have here, they're the ones that attended. They were friends with them back home too, so they knew them over 50 years.
Okay.
So
So there was a deeper
yeah,
relationship
yeah,
than just a superficial
um,
judgmental
yeah.
relationship.
So um, and once I became a police officer, they didn't, huh?
Ossifer.
Yeah, they didn't see me like they saw that it wasn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. So then they started like actually being impressed about the type of stuff I was doing.
Well, yeah, because and here's the thing. That's funny you say that because I remember when I called my mom and I said, I have to kind of step back and look at from their perspective. When you say police to first generation Middle Easterners, the only point of reference they have, especially if only been here in the United States for like 5 years and they haven't been like involved with law enforcement, the only reference they have to compare it to is the police back home, right? So if somebody's Jordanian, they're comparing it to being in Arabic it's called shorty, right? Like a shorty. I always when I found out the name was shorty, I'm like, oh, I'm a shorty. Like literally, I'm a shorty and a shorty, right? It's the same thing, right? Because that means police. So when you look at like someone who's let's say Arab, and they call them that's the or even Iranian, the only frame of reference they have is the police and what they do
Yeah,
overseas,
their
right?
perception changes as they're here longer.
Right. And then if they start actually getting an insight and actually looking into it and they realize, wait a minute. that's actually a profession here. Of course, looking at it from a financial perspective, it's probably a profession that pays the least amount for everybody. Now, I don't know how much you got paid when you first started. I think when I started, I was making $8.35 an hour. That was my pay when I
That
worked.
was really low, but then the cost of living wasn't as high either.
Well, so I lived in Hearn is the first place. I said 8.35 or maybe it was 9.35. I can't remember. It's been so long. You're talking like 30 years ago, right?
Well,
31
the
years ago.
the minimum wage is $7.25.
Yeah, back then minimum wage was 3.35.
I remember
So
when it
making
was
$9 an hour was pretty good
it
money.
used to be 4.25 an hour.
When you started?
No, when back in the 80s, I remember that's what the minimum wage here was.
Yeah. I think it went
Yeah,
from 3.35 to 3.85 and then 4.25 and then 5.25
yeah,
and then 6.75
and then
and then
7.25.
7.25, right.
They're trying to make it 15
But I mean,
an
good
hour.
lord, man. Back then when I was living over there off of Kirkwood and Memorial, um, on Bateswood. That was the name of it. And I was working at Hungary's because it was right at the corner
Yeah,
of
that was so close
yeah.
by.
Yeah, it was right there close to it because as soon as you came out of Bateswood, there was a Taco Bell. It's turned into something else now. There was a Taco Bell, my favorite restaurant at the time. And
That was when it was good, man.
oh yeah, yeah,
Now,
Taco Bell, I remember,
yeah.
man. I still
now
like. I mean, Taco Bell, yeah,
I could
it's
tear
not
up some
good.
Mexican
It's not
pizza,
the
bro.
same.
Back in the day, you know
That's
what I'm
not.
yeah.
saying?
It's not definitely not the same as it used to be on any of the fast food places.
Anything.
I remember when I lived in those Bateswood Place apartments, is what it was called. I had a one bedroom, like a one bedroom, and I think my rent was $290 a month.
Yeah,
Right.
now it's probably about 13, 1400
For
bucks.
that same one bedroom, right? So making $9 an hour, that was pretty good. Now, when I worked at Hungary's, because of the location that it's at, I would go. I used to work in the morning. I'd go in at like 10 and get off at like 2 o'clock, and then I would go back at 5 and work till like 11, right? Um, I would bank like 150, $200 a day in tips, and we're talking back 1991, 1992. You know what I'm talking about? That was good money. Of course, I don't know what the fuck I did with all the money because every month I would be short on rent for 200. It's like 3 days worth of work. I'm calling my uncle, dai, ببین نمیدونم پولم چی شد, right?
Gosh, no.
Spend it all.
And he's like, okay, okay,
I'll
come
send you
by the
some
house. I give you $500.
You had a good day.
Good day. Yeah, my day lives in Beverly Hills now.
Does he?
Really good day.
It's a real good day.
You know, the Beverly Hills mayor was Iranian.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one now.
No.
There's
No,
the
previous
new
one.
one is Iranian too.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, the new one is Iranian too.
So I told my mom, I was like, I'm becoming a police officer and I want to go to the police academy. And she's like, what? You gonna become doctor? This is dangerous. You get killed, and it's very Don't you watch the news? This is not back home. They have guns. Everybody has guns. So she's worried. But at that time, I was already married to my
Right.
wife, and I thought maybe she will say like no too. And she's like, do what makes you happy. And I was like, well, law enforcement makes me happy.
You're talking about the wife you have now?
Yeah, because we met in high school, right?
Oh, okay.
So
She's Hispanic, isn't
yeah,
she?
she's
Okay.
Hispanic
Mexican, right?
from Mexico.
Mexico,
Yeah.
okay.
She was born here in California.
Yeah, but she's ethnically she's
yeah,
Hispanic.
She's
Yeah.
and so I was like, I'm gonna do it. And I remember when I was working loss prevention, I was making like $11 an hour, and that time was good money.
That was good
11
money,
to
yeah, back
$12
in the
an hour.
day.
So when my first job as in law enforcement, I was getting like $16 an hour.
Right.
But we were making a lot of overtime too.
Right. Oof.
A lot. Like it was like not even. I'm not talking about extra jobs, just
Yeah,
like
just overtime, just regular
Yeah.
overtime.
And they were just like always overtime. Like we didn't even want. I didn't even want to take it sometimes. Like
Right.
man, it was like work night shift, get off, you staying over late, come in early. So the hours was like, it was crazy. Like shift work, right?
Right.
Like, you're
When you
away
first
from
start off, you get the worst
The
shift.
shift days, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I got lucky.
Tuesday-
I never started
Tuesday,
with a big
Wednesday off,
department.
and you get the night shift.
Right.
and
So-
I know everybody in the city, right? I mean, you
Is
just
that
said,
one of the guys you know?
yeah, I know.
So we're over here doing a podcast in a restaurant, and people are walking in to work on the air conditioner, and everybody at the table knows him.
So yeah, he owns a big AC company, and he deals with a lot of ACs. So
Is he Persian too?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No
yeah.
shit.
So yeah,
Well,
You
good
didn't hear
lord.
you
Where
didn't
the
hear him
Italian?
say bah bah.
Oh, I didn't hear him. Now I'm getting old, man. There's
Say,
any
hey,
hearing.
that sounded like back in the days when I was in Iran when the cops would see me in the patrol. Hey, Khajur, yeah, let's go.
Hey, let me ask you this. When people find out you're Iranian, even when they're Middle Eastern, do they do that? "Hey, آقا ما یه تیکت گرفتیم میتونی برامون درست
Oh
کنی?"
no,
Let me
yeah.
say it in
They
English.
don't. They don't. It's okay. I'll let Abdi talk out if he want to say it, but basically is they take a little like a mole, right, and then turn it into a mountain. It's like they got a ticket for speeding or something, and they think it's like end of the world,
World.
you know. And I'm like, it's gonna be
They're
okay.
pleading the case with
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, did the officer have right?
He tell me he's not showing me the radar. That's illegal. He has to show me the radar.
Whoa. And that's another thing. So when I started and you started, there was not a lot of I don't know any like Persian cops that except one guy, and I still talk to him.
Who?
And he Samas.
Who?
Well, I don't want to say his name right now because
Is
he
it
does,
HPD?
no, he does undercover stuff too.
No, I mean where?
Huh? Okay,
Which department?
he's out in Montgomery County.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I didn't know anybody who
I
was
didn't
Persian.
either.
I heard there was one guy with HPD who was Persian. I just never met him.
There's several actually.
Really?
One was the one that was going to come today,
Yeah.
and then there's like 2 or 3 other ones.
Yeah, well, these guys are new.
Yeah.
let's
When
say
I
that's
got
all-
in, I was the only one.
Yeah, so you probably
It wasn't as
first.
popular.
Right.
And me and him, we got along. The other guy I'm talking about, he does a lot of undercover stuff, so I don't want to put his name out there. But
Right.
me and him were actually started the same year.
Really?
So like I was like, man, that's cool. Like I know another Persian
Right.
in law enforcement. So I
Now,
was
not
like,
only you can have cello kebab, you can actually talk about police work
Yeah.
without
Oh,
why do you have cello kebab?
You imagine, like, to tell me that, like, I would go visit family, and it's like I have nothing in common with them, right? Because they would be watching the news, and they would hear something that, like, law enforcement did, and they'd be like, they are doing this is illegal. And I'm like, nah, Amo, that's not illegal. What do you mean it's not illegal? And then I'm like, because this is how the law is. No. law اینجوری نیست. من میدونم. خوندم. I said, Baba, you have PhD in Iran. That doesn't apply here, right?
Law is different here.
Right.
but going back, it's yeah. So I was excited. I was like, man, this guy, he's Persian, he's law enforcement. So we still keep in touch. But as time went by, I noticed like I met Abdi, and I was like, after that, we started meeting a bunch of new guys that are coming in law enforcement now. But these guys are coming in, they're getting pretty good shifts, and they're not going through the stuff.
Same things we had
went
to.
through.
Yeah.
And so I think that everything is happening. Things are changing. There's more people coming to the city, and law enforcement is just they're so short everywhere in every
Right.
department that is now they're reaching out to everybody, different communities to come in.
Well, when I was living here, I think you might have had. Now, remember, I was younger and I had only been here 2 years. I lived here from 89 until 94 when I moved to Hearn. And if I remember right, they were saying there was maybe 15 to 20,000 Persians in the whole like Houston metro area. And that includes like Fort Bend, Montgomery,
Yeah, all the surrounding
all
greater
the
Houston
surrounding
area.
counties, and mainly kind of like West and Southwest Houston. And the ones in Montgomery, they were basically living around Woodlands. You know what I'm talking about? Like the ritzy ditzy
Yeah.
area. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't like Spring. Because I remember going to, there was a country and western club over there off of 249. I can't remember what the name of it was.
Wild West? No,
Maybe-
back in the
I don't remember what they called it then, but it had a
Where?
dirt parking lot. It was off 249.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
This is when they were still in the middle of constructing Beltway 8. It was open in sections. I know that Beltway 8 over here was open. like on the west side of Houston, when they were building the one that ran across by the airport. So you would have to go up to a certain point and take 1960 to 249 and then go
Yeah.
north.
Oh, I never went out. When I was these years you're talking about, I stayed like where you Memorial,
Yeah.
Southwest. We were all from the same
Yeah,
area.
that's the only ones that I
Yeah.
knew. And
And now
now,
all the Persians, they like over there in California is like Hollywood. Over
yeah.
here is like Memorial.
Memorial, yeah, still the same, man.
It's like
Kocca zindagi mikon Memorial.
uh,
Ey baba.
Damn it, yeah.
Damet gel. Hal میکنین دیگه اونجا.
but
Man.
it's been a ride though. I just I think like spiritually it's like we're it's like the Persian we make everything big deal, like become a doctor, become an attorney because you're gonna make more money and you're gonna have
Very
this
dramatic.
prestige at the end of the day, it's like you're not really happy because you got all this money now, but then you're like
You can't enjoy life.
enjoying life.
Yeah, you can't
So
enjoy life.
why not do the job you want to do and make a difference? Like for us, it's service work too,
Right.
helping people. And it's like so you get to enjoy your job because any job you're gonna want to do it every day, anyways.
Mhm.
It's just a work, right?
Right.
But at least be in a position that you want to get up and do it, and then you make the money, and then you get to enjoy life.
Right.
But if I would have gone the other way, I think I would have been just like I don't think
Depressed.
I would have done it anyway.
You've probably been depressed. Yeah, because a lot of people they get a big heavy education and then they're working a job where they're just like miserable. So then that works family life miserable. It makes everything miserable. And you started, I guess you worked. How long did you work patrol before you went specialized?
With the new department, just 3 years.
Patrol?
Yeah, and then I went into specialized unit.
Yeah. Because Shawn, you retired and then you came back part time.
Yeah.
Right. See, I went in, and I'll tell you, and anybody who reads my book, I've got it in there. I think I put it in there. But why I got into law enforcement. I had moved to. We went by there today, just to kind of see what the area looks like when you come off Dairy Ashford and take a ride on Westheimer, the next red light. Uh, I can't remember. Roseland Place Apartments is what the name of it was, right? And it's right off of
South of
Westheimer.
Westheimer?
Before Richmond. On the
No.
right-hand side.
You come down Gessner. No, not
Gessner or
Gessner. You come
Dairy
down
Ashford?
Dairy Ashford. You
Oh.
take a right, going towards 6, and the next light, you take a right, and the apartments are on the left. It's the older apartments. It's
Okay, I know.
Roseland. I can't remember the name.
They're gray, or back in the days they were gray.
Yeah, so I
Yeah, they
lived there.
probably painted them.
Yeah, I can't remember what I know it was Briarcrest. No,
Briar
Roseland Place.
Forest,
No, Briar Forest is parallel to
Westheimer.
Westheimer. No, this is when you come down Dairy Ashford and you take a right,
So
and
you
then
got Briar Forest, Westheimer, Richmond.
yeah, no, you take a right on Westheimer going towards 6.
On Briar West was the one you were talking about.
Yes, Briar West.
Yeah,
Briar West.
when we're
I think it
talking-
was 2400 Briar West is what
Yeah.
the address was or something like
It's
that.
that the complex is there, but it's no longer called that.
Yeah, it used to be called Roseland Place Apartments.
Yeah.
And I remember I was 18 years old, right? And you live in Houston, 18 years old, you got your own apartment. It's party time. You know what I'm saying? like when I went to Stratford High School, if I was 16 years old, I had my own apartment. Right.
I
So
think Abdi went to the same high school, I think.
you went to
No,
Stratford? You went to
no.
Memorial.
Oh,
Yeah, he was like a mortal enemy for the Stratford Memorial.
I went
Right?
to Elsick.
You went to Helsinki. You didn't go to A-Leaf.
Well,
We
that's in
stayed away. What was the name of that other high school over there?
Hastings.
Hastings.
They're right next to each other.
Yeah.
They're attached.
Attached.
They're
basically,
attached
yeah.
now?
Yeah, they were always like.
That's
See, we never went down there, man, because when
Yeah.
I was going to school over here, they had the Southwest Cholos and all
Oh
the
yeah,
other
They're
people.
still there.
They're still there.
They're still there, but like you didn't go past Richmond on freaking Dairy Ashford. If you went past
They're-
Richmond, it's foul, shots
Yeah.
fired.
They're not as big as they used to be, but now you got MS-13. You got
Oh yeah, no. I think
yeah.
the biggest ones back then were the Southwest Cholos were the biggest ones,
Latin
and then it was
Kings.
Latin Kings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were
Latin
just
Kings
up and
are
coming.
still there too.
Yeah, they were just up and coming because I remember when they were bumping heads because one apartment complex would be Latin Kings and then another 3-4 apartment complex would be Southwest Cholos. And the reason why I knew about that because like I was saying, I was 18 years old and I'm sitting in my apartment and there's like 6 or 7 of us and we're drinking Heineken, right? 18 years old.
Yeah.
And we're outside on the stairs, and a pickup truck pulls up, and it's my next door neighbor. He gets out, blue uniform, and I went, "Oh shit!" Right, HPD, and I'm like, and he was tall, tall dude, like blonde hair, blue eyes. He ended up going Secret Service, right? So he comes up and he comes around the corner and he's like, "What are y'all doing?" I said, every all the girls are sitting on the chair and they got their beers hanging like this, right? I'm just standing over there at my door with my beer in my hand. I said, "Drinking a beer," and he goes, "Hmm, okay." He walks in the room. He walks into his apartment. His, right next door. So everybody's like, "Oh, we gotta leave. Oh my God, he's gonna do something." 30 seconds later, he comes back out. He's taking his shirt off and he's like, "Where's the beer?" He
Yeah.
walks into my house. He goes to the fridge and he grabs a beer. And it's like, "Oh, this is cool." So we're all
Yeah.
hanging out. And then so as we hanging out, and he's like, "Hey," I said, "What do you do for HPD?" He goes, "I'm on the gang task force." That's when they had the gang task force. And I was like, "Oh shit, what do y'all do?" He goes, "We go around with gangbangers is what we do." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Like how?" He goes, "We shake them up. We, find a reason, put them in jail, just to get them off the street because they're burglarizing, shooting up people." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." He goes, "You're 18, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Why don't you come ride with me?" And I'm like, "I can do that?" He goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "No shit." He goes, "Yeah, just don't drink before you come over there." And I was like, "Okay." So I go up to the West Side substation. I think it was at Richmond and Derry Ashford,
Yeah.
It's
right?
still there.
It's still there.
Yeah, and it was like few years old. It was because there was nothing around it. It was West Side substation, the parking lot, and then cow pastures. You know what I'm saying? There was nothing there. Like when you turned on Derry Ashford
There
from
were some
Westheimer,
new neighborhoods, but yeah, everything was,
I think there was a couple of apartment complexes down the road on the right,
yeah.
but all across the street, and even the space between Richmond and Westheimer on Derry Ashford was all just cow pastures. There was nothing there. So I go be bopping up there. I had a little Honda Civic hatchback, 1994 Honda Civic hatchback, and my clutch was hooked up with a what do you call it? A coat hanger, just to make sure there was enough tension on it because I was too cheap to try to change the clutch. Right? So I go in there and I get in the car with him, and we're patrolling like Richmond, Harwin, where it was like really, really bangers were all back around. And man, I watched them work for that night, and I was like, shit, this is what I want to do. And from that point on, I did not give a shit about being a computer programmer, being a damn doctor, being a freaking mohandes or engineer. All I want to do is I want to be the damn police, right? But that goes back to when I grew up in Iran. You guys were very, very young when the revolution happened, right? I was there and I saw it happen and I was in first grade, right? So when they started training the kids to get ready to go, because you remember, like a year later is when Saddam attacked, right? And they didn't have much of an Artesh a year later because they pretty much like killed all the Shah's Artesh and all those other people. So they were trying to like build up. And at that time, I remember there were Palestinians and Lebanese that were helping them, like put things together. So, now you hear people say, "Oh, well, PIJ and the PLO and all these people were helping." Yeah, that's true. I remember because you and I know when you meet a Persian, there's a certain look with Persians, right? We don't have 6'3" Persians unless they're like a rail, like a skinny rail from like certain parts of Iran,
My
right?
cousin is 6'3".
Where's he from?
Well, his dad's from Kermanshah, his mom's from
There you
Persia.
go,
My
Kermanshah.
dad is 6'1".
Where's he from?
Tehran.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, he's kind of oddity because usually we're like, if we hit 5'9", we're like, right? Here at 5'9", they're like, "Hey, midget," right? So, so so I'm seeing all these people, but the thing about it is, and I talk about it where like at that age, you're like mesmerized with the military uniform and the guns and the because especially it's not like military uniforms now. They were really like thick, right? So when they would put their cover on, it wasn't like a shirt, it was almost like a coat. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And the shoulders were all broad and they had all those, markings and stuff on it and big reach, beard. And you're just like, wow. So then I come over here, I don't see the military guys, I see the cops. And they're all working out, good shape, and like, that old boy that went to Secret Service, he was a big old tall dude. And I was like, man. So that's really me getting attracted to the law enforcement side was kind of like a hybrid of both. I already had that imprinted that I wanted to be in the like a military role. But then when I see that you can do the same thing and have the same prestigious look on the law enforcement side of it, plus I'm not a sit behind the desk kind of guy.
Mm,
You know what I'm talking
me
about? I
Yeah,
can't.
you
I
got to be
can't.
proactive.
Yeah, I gotta be out. And just like we were doing this podcast, I said, instead of going to a hotel and trying to set it up at like a closed air environment, why don't we do it outside? Now I know when we go to edit this and you have all these people driving around and the drunks coming in and yelling and screaming, but said we might just leave that because it's natural,
Yeah.
right? But at least for me, that's what became attractive to get into law enforcement. Plus, at the time, $9 an hour was pretty damn good. You know what I'm saying? To enjoy, going back to what we were talking about, to enjoy waking up and instead of going, shit, I gotta go to work again today. You get up and you're like, hell yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
Put
Because
on
you're
uniform.
gonna get a paycheck in 2 weeks.
Right.
Right. And it's like, what kind of shit am I gonna get into today? Right. Which, and I kind of start down the path of that's how I ended up in interdiction. Because when I went to Hearn, I was 5'4", weighed 149 pounds. Okay. With my vest and my belt and everything, 185. Right. But I worked out. Right. So I was like King Kong. I was going to like stop the crime in this whole town all by myself. I come around a corner one night after I checked on at 9 o'clock. It was like 9:05. I checked on in my house. I roll out. I come onto the main highway. I think it was 391. And I'm looking at a gas station. And there's a dude standing right outside the gas station to the right behind the building, and he's got a ski mask over his head. And this is in the middle of summer. And if anybody hasn't been to Texas in the middle of summer, it is hot,
Mm.
right? And humid at night too. And
Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell is this dude doing? So I pull up in my patrol car. I get up and I was like, hey man, you got some ID on you? And he's smoking a cigarette through the little ski mask, and he goes, you, and he throws it at me. And I was like, oh hell no. I go to grab him. What I didn't realize is there was like a bunch of them around the corner because I only had a view from one side. Dude, I grab him and he's like, man, leave me alone. And by that time I look up and I'm like, oh shit. And there was like 6 or 7 of them. These are like high school kids, right? But they're tall. Again, I'm only 5'4", right? And they come around and man, I got an ass whooping from that parking lot, drug it into the damn Sonic parking lot in between 2 cars. You remember the old SL20X?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The metal ones? Bro, they hit me in the head with that thing so bad, I literally could see Tweety Bird flying around. In the process, I had my radio, my mic coming through my loop, and it was hooked to my vest, like not vest, but my shirt.
The
Yeah.
worst thing you could do is
Right.
choke you with
Well,
it.
no, they ripped it where it came dislodged from the radio. So it ripped from the radio. And the old, I think it was an ICOM radio. It was one of those cheap ones. When that little clip is attached to the radio, the walkie-talkie doesn't work. It has to go through the mic where the mic is broke. So I'm
So
like,
you got to take it off.
I keep pushing. No, yeah. So I'm like on the ground trying to keep from getting hit and I'm getting kicked and all that stuff. And I'm just like pushing this thing, yelling and screaming. And then all of a sudden I see this wire come around and it's all dangling. And I'm like, shit. While I'm like I'm like wedged between 2 cars. And these people at Order Sonic, they're sitting inside their thing and just looking over at me, getting my ass whipped. It just happens that right across the street, there's a gas station. And one of the wreckers, whose brother is one of the sergeants at the PD. So the wrecker is also a volunteer firefighter. So in his wrecker, he's got the police radio and the fire radio. So he gets on the radio. I can hear, I just can't talk. When I key up, it's looking for the microphone. When I key up, it keys up and all they get is, they don't get actual sound. So I can hear him and saying whatever his number was, he called his fire department number. He says, the new guy, the The Arab guy, he's getting his ass
The
beat.
Arab guy. Hey, don't call a president Arab. You can get your ass whooped.
that's,
Yeah.
that's another thing. We need to tell the American people: do not call a Pakistani an Arab. Do not call a Persian an Arab. Do not call a Kurd an Arab. Hell, don't call an Arab or Arab. Okay, I'm just trying to be, trying to play the role here. Don't call an Arab a Kurd. Don't call an Arab a Turk. It is like degrading to everybody, right? Because there's that sense of
Pride.
tribal pride, right? The ethnic pride. So anyway, I can hear him say that Arab guy's getting his ass whipped, send some backup. After that, I don't remember shit. All I remember is at one point I opened my eyes. I'm in the back of an ambulance, and back then they didn't give you equipment. You had to buy your own. So I had to buy my own vest. I had to buy my own belt. I had to buy my own gun.
Yeah, I remember.
The only thing they gave was the breeches and the shirts. And look at me, sound like breeches. The
Yeah.
Persian guy. They gave me breeches.
Short.
Right. So I wake up and I kind of come up and they've got this neck brace on me and shit, right? And I'm bleeding. I didn't realize I was bleeding. And I saw it go to sit up, and the guy's like, "Get back down! Don't get up! Don't get up! We don't know if you have like neck injuries and back injuries." And I'm like, I look down, and they got all these machines hooked up, all the little EKG machines and shit. And I'm like, "Where's my vest?" And they're like, "We have to cut it off." And I'm like, "No! I paid $640. That's where the Persian part kicks in. I paid $640 for this thing, and you cut it off, you idiot!
You can just take it
It has a
off.
Velcro." Right? This is like, I'm like over here half beat down, got a freaking concussion and a subdural hematoma. I didn't realize
You
I
worry
had one.
about the
All I
vest.
was worried about was the $640 that I paid on the vest. And the next question is, "Where's my gun?" And they're like, "Oh, the sergeant's got it." And I said, "Oh, thank God I can get that one back," because I was worried about somebody stole my gun. Luckily, I had one of those Safariland SS3 holsters, and I know they were trying to take it from me because I could feel my hip moving. They just couldn't get it out. You know what I'm talking about? All of that to say, I was in ICU for like 2 days because I had brain swelling. So anyway, when I came
Wow.
back, I came back. I'd only been on like 6 months, right? I'd only been a cop for 6 months. I got 3 months of light duty, and Johnny was the chief, and he's like, "All right, you worthless fuck, you ain't gonna be able to do nothing with this little 11-man department. Why don't you go find you some schools you can go to, at least start working towards your intermediate certificate?" And I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, just as long as they're free, go to them, and I'll scrounge up the money somehow to pay for the hotel. Try to stick to 1 or 2 day class." All of this to say, 6 months, 9 months into it, I started going to a lot of different classes. And most of them I came down here were like to HPD, Harris County, Houston Community College, all these free ones that they were putting out, right? I went to an interdiction class that was put on by a Border Patrol agent out of Falfurrias checkpoint. And, before that, I used to stop people and they would like have a roach in their car. And I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, I'm winning the drug war," like a little piece of freaking zigzag paper with one seed in it, right? And I'm like,
Back
"Yeah,
then, that was like,
it's a
it's a
class
tailable
B.
offense.
Listen, it's a class B. It's a usable amount." It's like, "Dude, it's a leaf." And I'm like, "You can take one puff. That's good enough," right?
You're going to jail.
They're going to jail, right? Then I see a picture he puts up where they stop a pickup truck with 4,000 pounds of weed in it. And I'm like, huh? Like this whole class, all I got is this imprint of this 4,000 pounds of weed and like four guys standing around it, with their dogs and taking a picture. And I'm like, all this time I've been chasing roaches, and that's the kind of shit that drives down the highway? Bro, I did not want to answer calls anymore. I didn't give a shit about writing tickets. People's dogs wouldn't get lost. I didn't give a shit. All I give a shit is I'm gonna hit me a damn
Traffic
load when I get
stops.
back, right? And we're talking Hearn is at Highway 79 and Highway 6.
Yeah.
Right? You go through College Station, you go up, and it goes, and I think it ends up in Waco, and then you get on 35 and go north. So a week after I finished that class, I go back to work. Right, my first day back. It was on a Wednesday. I worked 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 4 10s. I go to work Wednesday, 5 o'clock. So I'm like, you're in a small town, and back then there was kind of like not necessarily required, but they were kind of like, "Hey, y'all need to write some tickets." right? So I figured I'll go out right at 5 o'clock, between 5 and 7 when people are coming in from work, from working in Bryan College Station. I said, write a couple of tickets and then I'll start working interdiction, right? I come over the overpass, the railroad tracks, see a car coming, speed limit was 55 at the time. I see a car come around the corner, 71. I said, shit, I got a hard copy in the back pocket right there, dude. I remember it was like 507 or 511. I literally checked on from the house, drive out of the neighborhood, got on the Highway 6 and started heading south. Car goes by me. I turn around and I look, and it's a Lincoln Town Car with Oklahoma plates. And I was driving a 89 Cutlass Supreme. You know, the Chips cars, the ones in the movie that show Chips, not the motorcycles, but the boxy ones.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
the
yeah.
Shamu ones, but the actual
Aren't
boxy
they
one.
the old Oldsmobile vehicles?
Yeah, it's the boxy ones, and it had bench seats.
Yeah,
And it was like vinyl bench seats,
yeah,
so
yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't get to sit. And my little short ass, I couldn't stay on. I had to keep my seatbelt on, otherwise, every time I turned, I'd like slide
Slide over,
across. You
yeah.
know what I'm saying? And you didn't have tilt. And my radar was one of those old custom radars. You remember the old gray ones that had the digital display was actually little lights that would light up?
You talking about the dinosaur age?
Bruh.
We weren't there that time.
But listen, y'all probably seen vintage, like it's probably at the museum at Houston Police Academy.
It
You know
probably
what
is.
I'm
Yeah.
Probably
The shit they have in the museum is what I started out with, right?
makes sense.
Yeah, didn't have. Oh, our cameras was a little metal thing that had suction cup that would stick up to the front of the windshield, and it was a little metal thing that would come out, and then there was a regular camcorder on it, right? And then you would have to run a bungee cable over the little metal bracket and hold it down to your console. And your console wasn't like the Autodesk consoles and stuff. It was just two honeycomb looking things that they would drill to the side of the hump. And it had a bunch of holes in it, and they would just put the radio. So you had to bring this bungee cord and put it down and hook it so so the camera wouldn't be jumping up and down. And then right over the speedometer, I had the custom radar, but I couldn't see the front. So I always had to drive like this because my only field of view was between the spotlight and the left side of the radar. Right? So, I cannot tell you how many right rear tires I blew out because I would turn the corner, I couldn't see the curb. Oh boy, got the tire. I did that shit for so many times. They actually took my car into the shop and they took 1.5 inch pipe. They cut it, took the seats out, welded the pipes, and then they bolted the seat back on the pipe to bring the seat up so I could actually see the little Chevy marker on the front of the car because I couldn't see it. So anyway, going back, I'm driving that car, so I whip it around and it had a 350. I think it was a 350 in it. 455. I don't know. Whatever them, NASCAR shit,
Are you were able to catch up to it real quick?
Oh, bro, when I hit that turnaround and I gunned it, smoke right behind me, and I'm because I'm fixing to put a hard copy in the dude's back pocket. I put him over about a mile up the road. This dude gets out. He's a big old fella. He's from Lawton, Oklahoma. He goes, I said, man, where you headed to? He goes, Oklahoma City. I said, what's going on in Oklahoma City? He goes, I live there. And I said, I thought you live in Lawton. He goes, well, that's close to Oklahoma City. I didn't know where it was at, right? I ain't never been to Oklahoma. I was like, okay, so where you coming from? He says, Houston. I said, how long you been in Houston? He said, oh, man, like 10 hours. I said, why'd you go down to Houston for 10 hours? I said, how long?
In police
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. And I was like, what's going on in Houston? I said, why'd you drive down there? He goes, I went down there to see a girl and I got down there and she wasn't there. So I'm just headed back home. And I was like, wait, so you're going to go up to Dallas and then hit 35 and go down? He goes, yeah. I said, why didn't you just go out 45? He literally says, there are too many troopers out there. And I'm like, this dude is going way out of the way to go through Bryan College Station, to go up to Waco, hit 35 to go through Dallas. But he don't want to go up 45. I did know that there was 2 troopers that worked out of Leon County. They used to work drugs, right? They used to work interdiction. And I'm like, So I finished writing the warning. You got anything illegal with you? No, sir. I said, you give me permission to search it? He goes, have at it. So I go get the keys out, pop the trunk open. You know, old Crown Vic. This is a Lincoln Town car, same thing. You know, it had the little shelf that the tire fit on.
Yeah.
So I open it up and there's a garment bag. There's a there's a bottle of champagne. There's like a little carry-on baggage and it's all high-end stuff, right? This guy was like 55 years old. and I look at the tire, and the Crown Vics didn't have carpet over the tire, like the little carpet you put over it. But the Lincoln Town Cars had the carpet over it to kind of match the other carpet. I'm looking at the tire. I'm like, why is the tire cover so much bigger than the tire? I pull the tire cover off and I look, and it's a Honda Accord tire as a spare, and it's dirty, and it has the beads and everything with grease and stuff on it. And I'm like, "Is this your tire?" He goes, "Man, it's a rental car. It must have been in there when I got it." I said, "Well, can I take it out?" And he goes, "Have at it." So I unscrew it and I go to pull it out. It's so heavy, I fell in the trunk. I high centered and fell in the trunk, my feet dangling out. And the guy goes, "Officer, you need some help? I come get you out." He come hold my hand and get me out of the damn trunk because I was in the trunk, dude. I'm holding onto the tire like a little monkey just fell out of the tree with this thing just sitting. I come out, I pull the tire out, it's heavy as hell, and I roll it, and it goes whoop, and it rolls one time and it stops, and I'm like, I said, "What's in the tire?" He goes, "Man, I don't know. I just rented the damn car. It's from Hertz." And I was like, "All right." So I put it up on the thing and I open it up and I smell the air coming out. It smells like mustard, like
Smells like
literally
what?
mustard.
Mustard.
And I'm like, huh? By that time, the sergeant pulls up behind me, and he ended up being HPD homicide. I don't know if y'all know him. His name is Jason. There's a, is I don't want to say his name, but anyway, he lives out in Katy. Anyway, he shows up, and but this is so long ago that the best cameras we had was a Polaroid, like literally with the little flash things on the top that
Yeah.
you go, and it would flash, and then that flash is no good. It would go to the next one.
Yeah.
You remember that? That was
Yeah,
on
and then the
department
picture
issues.
comes out.
And it would come out and you had to go
Yeah, wait till it develops.
let it develop, and then you couldn't like slam it too much because then it would crease it and it
Yeah.
wouldn't look right. So that's my first dope picture. Anyway, I go to cut the tire open and Jason's like, no. I was like, why? He goes, what if you cut it and there's nothing in it? And I was like, it's a rental car. Who gives a shit? He goes, no, I'm going to take it to the gas station. So they had one of those full service gas stations. He goes out there.
Takes the air out of it.
He pop. They have a
Those
full
machines
service.
where they pop the
Oh,
rim and the
Yeah,
tire
like
off.
a tire changer. Those
Yeah.
machines. He gets on the radio and says, my number was 16. His number was not 6. His number 6. He goes, 6 to 16? I said, go ahead. And he said, put that sumbitch in handcuffs. He got 5 kilos of cocaine in here. So I just looked at the dude and I said, man, put your hands behind your back. So I put the handcuffs on him and he brings it back up there. First load in a little town, not even a year being in police work. I got 5 keys of coke.
Were you on the front page of the
Bruh,
newspaper?
it gets better. It gets better. And I ain't even got a year on yet. So I'm like, holy shit, that's 5 kilos of coke. The guy goes, man, I don't want to go to prison. I'm retired from the army. I don't want to lose my benefits. What can I do? I look over at Jason. I'm like, what do you do? He goes, I don't know. What are we going to do? So I call a trooper buddy of mine and I said, hey, man, what are we
Know
supposed
who
to
his
do?
source is.
He said, call DEA. I'm like, DEA? Who the hell is DEA? Right? I ain't no clue who the fuck
Don't
DEA.
even ask.
Don't even ask. DEA guy watching this, I was like, "You bastard." He's going to be looking at you and you're going to be looking you up in Natus and Firebird and all kinds of stuff, trying to figure out, we got to get a case on him, put him in jail. He freaking insulted us, right? But anyway, so I called DEA out of Houston and they're like, yeah, we'll come up there. Is he going to make a delivery? I said, I don't know. What the hell is a delivery? He's like, put him on the phone. I put him on the phone and the guy says, okay, hand him the phone. He talked to him for like a minute. He hands me and says, we're coming up there. There's going to be about 6 of us. They show up there at 10 o'clock at night. By 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a motorcade of us headed to Oklahoma City. We get to Oklahoma City at 6 in the morning. They do a search warrant to the recipient's house with the Marshal Service, their tactical unit, and 2 helicopters because it was out in the middle of BFE, right?
Mhm.
Dude, I'm watching this shit. I'm only on the job 9 months, and I'm like, wow, this is some movie shit. If I didn't want to make an answer a call anymore, that was it. After that, I was like, fuck this police work shit. I just want to work interdiction. And that's how I ended up going, like when you're talking about, I was asking you like how long before you got into specialty. Within 9 months, I was like, I don't even want to be a cop anymore. Like that gangbanger shit, I wasn't even interested in it anymore. It's like, this is the kind of shit that's driving down the highway, because not only was it a challenge, but it was kind of like, okay, if this stuff is killing people, what am I doing only putting a dime bag in jail? That's just a user. The supply is what the problem You know what I'm saying? So that's how I ended up in there, right? And then after that, it was just that's why I ended up moving so many places. It was strategically to go work certain highways. You know what I'm talking about? That's how I ended up in Mississippi. I mean,
Yeah.
when was the last time you heard a Persian guy said, "I love Mississippi. I'm gonna move to Mississippi," right? Everybody, every time I talk to somebody who's Persian, they're like, "Where do you live?" And I was like, "I live in Mississippi." چرا رفتی دهات زندگی میکنی؟
Come here. Come to
Come here, come to
California.
LA, come to Las Vegas.
What's the Tehrangeles? Come to Tehrangeles.
Tehran jealous, right?
Yeah. But I was thinking, like, when you talk about all your experience, and I'm like thinking about officer safety, and I'm like, man, that was so long ago. Like, that you the public was different that time.
It
Not
was, yeah.
everybody like and their mamas. I don't know. Like now, I'm thinking about you smelling the tire. I'm already saying shit, fentanyl in it.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. No, cocaine was like the biggest thing back then. You know what I'm
Well,
saying?
fentanyl wasn't even a thing at that time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they just started with like
It
Yeah.
was
6
it
years.
was around even meth. The only time you heard meth was when the biker gangs were making meth, the P2P labs and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and they were like staying at the Motel 6 and stuff, and they were just cooking it in the rooms, or then you had some hillbillies out there in like East Texas out in the compound. Super lab stuff was like the big bikers out in the West Coast.
Yeah, they
right?
had the clandestine labs.
Yeah, the clandestine labs. And then once the Mexican cartels got involved in it, then they started just making it. Because I remember the first load of meth that I got, and I thought it was going to be coke. And that's another story because I'm like taking up the whole damn podcast, but it is the first one, right? I remember, I remember 2003, I stopped a Ford Mustang that was coming from Guerrero, Mexico, right? And it had crossed the border. It was secondary. I found that out by calling Epic. It was crossed the border like 9 hours prior. It was secondary at the POE. It was searched. K9 alerted on it. And then it went to the checkpoint and Laredo checkpoint. It was searched. We're talking November of 23, probably. So it's because it was kind of cold. And I stopped it up there in Carthage, Texas, in Panola County on 59. So it came all the way through Houston. And I was working this one. I was working at the task force, the Northeast Texas Narcotics Task Force. And he's going to Atlanta. The car is out of Georgia. And, it's all hinked up. Everything's messed up. So I said, "Can I search your car?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, you can search the car. As a matter of fact, look, the dog scratched the back. And, yeah, I'll open the trunk." And I said, "Well, I want to search the whole car." He says, "Yeah, that's fine." So the first thing I do, I had learned something about dogs that when the car is traveling forward, the odor goes backwards. So
Yeah.
if the dog keeps hitting the back, I was like, "Well, I need to go to the front," right? I go pop the hood open. And as I pop the hood open, I look in the grill and I can see the little foam that's over the metal bumper underneath the bumper shroud, that it's Velcro down. And I'm like, So I get underneath and I look up and I can see the weld marks where they had hollowed out the foam that goes in front of the bumper. They built a box in front of the metal bumper and then they cut the foam and they Velcroed it on top to make it look like that it was part foam, but it wasn't. It was metal underneath. So I'm thinking, that's a pretty big compartment. It's probably weed or maybe coke. So I had ramps in my Crown Vic at the time. I had, those oil change ramps because we worked out in the middle of BFE. I had to have all the equipment. I could drop a transmission on the side of the road if I needed to, right? So I put the ramps, I pulled the car up. I pull him to the next gas station right there on Carthage. When you get on the loop, there's a gas station. I pull over. 11, 12 o'clock at night. There ain't hardly anybody out. I call my partner. He's 20 miles up the road. And I said, "Hey, come down here." And I get my drill. And I'm like, I'm fixing to see what's in it. So I crawl up underneath there. And right in my eyeball. And I went, "Ow, shit, that burns." And all of a sudden, I feel this heat like around my eyes. And I'm like, "What the f-?" And all of a sudden, I'm like, I start freaking shaking, right? My partner walks up and he goes, "Why the f are you wigging out?" And I'm like, "Dude, I think I got shards of metal in my eyes." And he goes, "Let me see." And he pulls his hand like this. He's got gloves on. And he goes, "What the f is that?" And it was a shard of crystal meth that was stuck right here with all the water that was, the moisture that was coming out. And he goes, "What is that?" And I was like, "I don't know." Because back then, when you found meth, it was that dirty meth.
Yeah.
That brown, it wasn't crystal shards. So he goes down underneath the car, and you can see shards this big just all over the ground because I didn't use a small drill bit. I used a drill bit that
Oh,
big.
shit.
So when I punched right into the package and I pulled out, it wasn't just what fell in my eyes. It was like an ounce of meth also fell on the ground. Well, I never paid attention to it. And he picks one up and he goes, "What the is that?" And about that time, this old trooper used to work over there. His name is Barry Washington. He's a black dude. He used to be on Real Stories of the Highway Patrol. Remember that show?
Yeah.
You remember that? Yeah, he comes up and he goes, "Looks to me like y'all got some damn crystal meth." He said meth, and I'm like, "Can meth be ingested in your eyes?" And the whole time I'm like,
Just
like
hide the
wigging out,
cat,
right?
like,
Because I remember looking at the camera later and I was like, "Good Lord, man, like somebody shot me with a damn shot of adrenaline." And about that time, my partner calls the task force commander and says, "Hey, I think we got it. He got meth in his eyes." And he goes, "Well, what is he? Can he see?" He goes, "Yeah, but dude, he's fucking wigging out here." He goes, "Call an ambulance and his
take
ass to
him
the
to the
hospital."
hospital. Yeah.
So the deputy comes by, picks me up. I go to the hospital and they're shooting me up with all kinds of medicine and shit. But anyway, we're talking about meth. That was my first experience with meth, and I freaking methed up myself, is what you call
Yeah.
it.
Did you ever come across any liquid meth?
No, not. There was a point in my career, and it started probably around 2005 when, because most of my career I spent with task forces. So we were big enough where we had a group that would work dope, right? And then there was three of us that would focus on the money side. Because when that started happening, I started being attached to the feds. You know, did like 3 years with FBI. I did 3 years with IRS, and then 3 or 4 years with HSI, Homeland Security. So we worked the Southern Money Laundering Initiative aspect of it, right? So we had the dope guys, and then we would do the follow the money, right? And when I'm talking about money, it wasn't like $16,000.
Yeah.
You know, I'm
Like a
talking about
billion.
like a Porsche with a compartment with $675,000. You know what I'm saying? And it was going to, you know, Michoacan. You know, this is when dope and money used to run out of Mexico and go to Atlanta or go straight to New York, right? It wasn't now that they have all these distribution centers set up everywhere. You know what I'm saying? So I started focusing on the asset forfeiture part of it towards the end because that was the other side of the investigation. Okay, we could take the dope, they're just going to make more. You take the money, that's how you dismantle it because that's how they were able to identify all the illicit businesses and all this other stuff, you know, the money laundering aspect of it and identify bank accounts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
You get into that large scale investigation instead of just a probable cause arrest for a possession. So I started focusing on that more. And that's about the time when liquid meth started being the thing. So I hardly worked the dope side because my focus was on the other side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're talking about all these dope, and we're like, what society's gone, what, the dope just gets worse and worse, and you deal with it on the street, with as violent crimes and theft and burglaries, robberies. I mean, they're increasing they want to get these drugs, and everybody in Houston probably knows somebody that died from fentanyl.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and I couple what was it like six and back in 17 they started giving us Narcans to carry with us.
yeah,
It's because of even a little bit of it, if on a
yeah,
traffic
yeah.
stop.
I've
I
seen the
mean, yeah,
videos. Luckily, when I left full time law enforcement in 2020, fentanyl wasn't. You would hear about it every once in a while, but
Yeah,
it
it wasn't
wasn't
as
something.
severe.
and then now they're going to carfentanil, the
Yeah,
elephant tranquilizer stuff.
yeah, the bigger one.
Yeah, it's like they keep the societies,
Well, as long
they've
as you got
been.
users, you got the demand. So the supplier who's making money is going to keep
But a
bringing it.
lot of them, some of them don't even know. Like now they're lacing marijuana with fentanyl.
Oh,
And
that's
so these
lovely.
kids are like, hey, I saw a deal at the schools that they selling like candy. It looks like rainbow
Oh yeah,
colors and
yeah,
looks
yeah.
like
The M, what they
Skittles. And
call them, like M30. You know, those are the pills. Yeah, I've seen those where they have them different colors, where it looks like gummy bears and stuff like that. Yeah,
y-
see, I never dealt,
back in our days, they were like, hey, have a beer or Zima or Bud Light or
bruh.
like in
Boone's Farm.
Boons or
Was it Boone's
Boone's
Farm?
Farm.
Boons,
The little
Mad
wine
Dog
cooler, Mad Dog
2020, Old
2020.
English 40, something like that. And or like when you heard about drugs, like marijuana or
Yeah, weed.
and then
Or
they
X.
weed
X, yeah, X
or
was
cocaine, they
acid.
were like
Acid was
Yeah,
hard shit.
yeah, and
Acid was hard.
cocaine was like the devil's drug they
Right.
talked
Well,
about, right?
cocaine, I remember when I was in high school, when you heard the word cocaine, it was the rich man downtown Houston's dope.
The attorneys
The
and
attorneys and the oil, the people who worked at like Enron and
Yeah.
Chevron, those long hours, had to get up at 5 in the morning out of Katy to drive all the way down there to be at work at 7. And then they would stay till 7, and then they would get back home at 9, and then they would have to do a bump to keep them awake. That was like rich man's drug.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Coke is now just like, or just whoever. Man, what a freaking society has changed. It's funny. All three of us, we come from a totally different background, and we see how the world, even here, has changed over the last 30 years. And what I don't understand is how half of the United States is fucking sleep. They think it's like rainbows and fucking unicorns everywhere.
correct.
I don't
I
understand
guess
it.
because they don't experience a lot of it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, you don't have to experience it. I mean, like I said, everybody knows somebody that's OD'd in Houston,
yeah.
a family member, a friend, or somebody, and it's on the news every day.
Is it
I don't.
here?
I mean,
See, like
yeah,
where we're
it
at,
is
nobody ever
everywhere.
talks about it.
It's bad. Um, it's just thinking about coming here from the other side of the world, and like we come here for if that what the life I've been given in America is just amazing life, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about values, the American values, the Christian values, but we started going away from all that stuff.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Anything, anything that has to do with traditional values.
well, not only Christian values, God,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
the Abrahamic God,
Yeah.
right? When I was a kid in school, we stood for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
It was like it was an honor,
Yes.
and the same thing with God. We talked about God.
Yeah.
The neighbors were nice to each other.
Mhm.
We didn't call the cops on our neighbors because there was a little grass on our side,
Right.
or that you get stopped by a police officer, they were willing to help you,
Right.
But nowadays, it's everybody for themselves, and it's like the society is going away from the values, traditional values,
Yep.
being married, going to church Sundays,
Yeah.
or going to to a mosque, or going
Whatever.
to
Yeah. Yeah.
your Jewish faith,
Just being a good person
yeah,
all around.
correct.
Yeah.
And we've seen it change a lot, and for and it's been getting worse and worse. It's like the devil is running the show basically, right? And
That's
it's just
true.
getting worse and worse. And now we're starting to see like under the new administration, they're starting to get serious with this drugs business
Right.
and criminals, because like he said, unicorns and bubbles is like you got violent criminals walking the street,
Right.
right? And I understand, okay, we have a constitution and it says like no unreasonable bail, no excessive punishments, right?
Right.
But the thing is, there's a common sense to it at the same time.
Right.
You got a guy that's been robbing people, shooting people, and he comes up in court and you're like, well, I gotta follow this. Well, no, you gotta use your brain.
Right. Yeah.
Like, is this person gonna go out and be offended?
Does he have a
against-
track record of being
Correct.
problematic?
And like people don't stand up for those kind of things.
Right.
They just hear what the news media wants to tell you.
Right.
Because
It's all politics.
Yeah, and I think that's what's happened.
Politics
See,
has
before
overrun everything.
that's right. That's right. Because I think what's happened is probably about mid 2000s is when all this political stuff and the divide started. Right. It kind of started separating people, and then you have people who are anti-government. They start exploiting the rights. Correct. Because now it's about redefining what the rights are. Does that make sense? And over a period of time, and it's funny because you would expect this to come from 3 redneck white dudes, Southern Baptist, to be
Yeah,
talking
now
about
it's
this,
like sovereign citizens.
right? But what I'm saying, what we're discussing,
Yeah,
is you would
as a
expect
Middle
that-
Eastern, we're all saying like what the direction America's going is wrong. Go back to what it basically
Used to be.
Used to be.
right?
Well, we had those values where America was
But
first.
that's why Middle Easterners came here, is to
Correct.
have those values, because we lived in societies where it was literally whatever political name you want to give it. It was like a dictatorship. It was either this way or no way. You know what I'm saying? So you come over here, but you expect to have that image of America back in the 70s and 80s, the politics. I don't give a shit what the White House is doing. Is how is the quality of life and how is my relationship with my neighbor, right? I shouldn't have to go. And I'm going to bring this shit up and it's going to piss off a lot of people because I can guarantee you there's not a single damn Middle Easterner, regardless of what religion they are, they're going to say, oh, we're okay with dudes going into women's bathrooms. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now, they want to make a special bathroom for them, fine. But don't force it on other people because that's
Right.
exactly what fucking ISIS does to everybody. You know what I'm saying? That's what some of the regimes do over there is force certain things on certain people without them wanting to be a part of it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So there was this guy, is a Iranian guy, and he's very, very wealthy Iranian guy in Houston. And but he used to be a valet guy.
Right.
And he told me this story maybe.
Wait. Is he the guy that used to have, what was the name of that country and western club that was
No,
over
no,
here
no.
off of Post Oak? There was a valet guy that owned all the valet
Oh, you're talking about
places.
Ace Valet. Ace.
I don't
think.
remember, but he had the valet at freaking
It's Ace. Ace, I think.
the Iranian
Yeah,
guy.
he's a little
What's
short
his
guy.
I
name?
worked for him.
Andy, I think he was.
Yeah, the older guy, the little
Yeah, short.
yeah, I used to work at the Country and Western Club over here. I forgot Post Oak Park, or I can't remember what it was called. It was right there at
Now it's called the Rustic, but
it was a
back
Country
then-
and Western Club,
yeah.
like a high-end Country and Western Club.
Correct.
So I remember parking people's Ferraris and shit over there.
So that guy, this guy that I'm talking about, he just was his valet guy.
Oh,
He parked for him,
right,
not the
right.
owner.
Okay.
He's a Persian guy in college or whatever, working valet.
Right.
And he just came here, he didn't speak English. And he brings the car or whatever, and the guy says, Dr. Pepper or something. So he didn't know what Dr. Pepper was. So he runs to another guy. Hey, I need Dr. Pepper here. Dr. Pepper here.
like the actual guy named Dr.
Dr. Pepper, right? No, it's a drink, fool. Not Dr. Pepper. And he still
I can already see it. Give me Dr.
Dr.
Pepe.
Pepe,
Bring me
Dr.
Dr.
Pepe.
Pepe.
bring me Dr. Pepper.
Bring me
Who
Dr.
the hell is Dr. Pepper?
Who the hell is Dr. I
Thank
don't know anybody. We have a
Yeah.
guest named Dr. Pepper in here.
Get him on the phone.
Dr. Pepper. We need Dr. Pepper. Hurry up. Emergency. Here's Dr. Pepper.
Oh my God.
Did you tell Shane what you do now?
As far as real estate and stuff.
No. What you're doing in as your part-time?
Oh, yeah, he knows.
Taking naps? Is
That
what you-
too. Definitely that too. Quite a bit of that.
Well, the thing is, it's pretty cool because this is the first time we actually get to meet you
Right.
face to face. We've been friends on Facebook, right?
Forever, yeah.
And but I'm so I got 5 kids. Like I told you, I got 2 dogs and a cat and a snake. Cause every kid and a cat.
You have your own village over there.
Yeah, like every kid wants
Yeah,
their own
no
animal.
kidding, man.
He's got a whole neighborhood with one
So
box.
I'm paying for 5 kids and then 2 dogs and a cat and a snake.
Dude, dogs are expensive, man.
That's
I mean,
another kid.
Huh?
That's another kid.
Yeah, I mean they eat
Bro.
and then we buy them this lamb stuff, like expensive stuff, because
Oh
my
my
wife
God.
wants them to live forever,
You
right?
order them from
The
Chewy,
IAM's
I don't know where she gets them from Amazon. They
ship it.
Ship it.
Yeah.
It's always there, and I just got a big carry
The
this
40
big-ass
40-pound bag,
and
yeah.
then empty it in. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
that's all the exercise he does, by the way.
that's but one thing
There's
about
the cop part coming out, fucking busting balls.
I do my exercise,
Oh, look into his bed.
Yeah, I take my naps. That's my relaxation. I learned, like I've been doing it for the last probably 9 years. I wake up in the morning, and the first thing I do, I meditate for about 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that
That's actually good.
Yeah.
That actually gets your brain. Yeah.
it's done so much good for me because it keeps me calm during the day.
Right.
And I do it at night too before I go to sleep. But the effect is, when I started out, it was just like 5 minutes, and man, I would be thinking about all this stuff,
Mhm.
and then it started to go away, and then now sometimes I'll go 30-40 minutes, but it's hard because having kids, they make noises, right?
Yeah.
So they know, if I wake up and meditate, I'll have a good day. and wake me up without meditation, you see the day I have, right? So I'm really into, that part because the job we have in law enforcement, we see dead bodies, we go to
Yeah, you see the
shootings, we
worst
see
of
the worst of
everything, man.
humanity,
Yeah,
right?
you West of
And
Fort Worth.
especially being in the third largest county in Harris County, and
Yeah,
we see so much that little agencies out
yeah.
in different cities or
They don't see
they
that.
don't see
They
that.
hear about it. Yeah, but they don't
Yeah,
see it. They
because we're
only see it on the first 48
in Houston, Harris County is like almost 8 million population. So something is popping all the
all the
time.
time. Yeah,
Whatever agency you work for, something is popping, right? So I learned like to deal with that, and you get so much stress. And
yeah.
now lately, there's been a lot of law enforcement officers. I don't know if you've been hearing, but they've been out suicide,
Oh
right?
yeah, I saw that.
And
Like Harris
Yeah,
County
those
had 3 in 2 weeks or
they
something.
weren't those were more like personal reasons why.
Yeah,
It didn't have to do with the job.
right,
well, it's not. We don't know what the case was, and anyone that commits suicide is just a terrible place to be at.
right.
But that's why I say with meditation helps out a lot to calm your mind and to like because we live in a temporary life. This is just a temporary life,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
We're all gonna die.
exactly.
And life is really a blink of an eye,
It is.
so we have to enjoy it. And like to get into that, like making so like your job really is not who you are. That's just making money, just to pay your bills, right?
Yeah,
But to enjoy at the same time. But in reality is you gotta enjoy life. You gotta don't make this life so serious.
right.
And I notice in law enforcement, a lot of us like to make it serious and it's like all about work, make us how many people that get divorced?
Yeah,
That's like number one. Like divorce, then they're paying child support, and
right.
then like their pension
You're
is
gonna have a
gone.
big child support bill.
And like God has blessed me with a good wife, and we've been together since high school, and but the thing is a two-way street too.
Right.
And I noticed like I have to work on my mind, body, and spirit at the same
Right.
time because we don't really talk about that in law enforcement. Law
Well, some
enforcement,
people do that, and then some people get into the gym, and that's how they're able to like focus. You know what I'm saying? Letting out some of that energy.
Yeah.
For me, dude, I wake up in the morning and I look at my emails, and I'm already 100 miles an
that's the
hour.
worst thing to do.
I know,
Like
I
honestly,
know.
because that's
But
gonna
that's because of the
ruin your day.
business part. That really didn't have nothing to do when I was working full time. Because when I was full time, especially with the position that I was in, I didn't have to work a shift. I worked whenever I wanted. So if I woke up and I just didn't feel it, I just didn't go. I'd wait 3, 4 hours before I went to work. You know what I'm saying? Because all I was required to do is just put in my minimum 80 hours every 2 weeks. How I did it didn't matter. You see what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
but human beings, we weren't created for all this.
Right.
Like, actually, if you go back to, read the scripture or even in book of Genesis in every religion, it talks about we're made to commune with God, to talk to him and to
Right.
be with him.
Right.
So when we get away from that, our bodies are not just work or business or so the mind needs
Needs the relaxation
you
at
try
one
that.
point.
Start for 30 days,
Yeah.
in the mornings, try to take some time out sitting outside, relax your mind, stay
It's
away
hard
from
though, man.
everything.
I wake up, I got to watch TikTok.
And that's the worst thing because you mind pollution
It
because you're
is.
putting all that. This is my guy right here. I mean, he
No.
sends me stuff
He
all day long
he posts
on
nothing
TikTok.
but the current events of what's going on in Iran. Okay. Some of it is reruns of what he's sending, and then he'll send some nonsense.
You know what he's doing while he's taking a nap? He's
Yes.
doing this and he's hitting forward,
Yeah.
and then he falls asleep and the phone hits him in the head.
And then wakes him up.
Let's blow this guy for him and his TikTok. I don't even have TikTok. Like that's like I
Dude,
don't
you're
have it.
missing out, man.
I don't want it because
You-
I know I already have Facebook and that's enough.
Now, Facebook, no,
So-
TikTok is like. Do you have ADHD?
Yes, he
I'm
does.
top ADHD.
Okay,
right?
dude, TikTok is the fix because everything is 30 seconds and
That's
the next
worse.
video, hold on, next video, you don't even have to worry about what the last one was because it's a totally different topic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you could do that
It like
now on
resets your
Instagram.
head.
Instagram or
It's the
Facebook,
same
you
thing.
could do
It's-
that. But that's the thing about our society, going back to our kids, like it's becoming, you're rewarding yourself because there are algorithms out there
Yeah.
running all this TikTok
Mhm.
and or Tic Tac or whatever you want to
TikTok.
call it. My kids say, "Stop saying that."
Tickety talk.
TikTok, Facebook or Bookface or they say surata awesome. What I don't know what they say in Farsi, Facebook. They have a name for it. And in Mexico, El Face, El
Yeah, El
Face,
Face.
and they're very into El Face and Instagram.
Instagram seems to TikTok has actually kind of changed because you're talking about like
Instant gratification. That's the word
it
I'm
is,
looking
yeah,
for.
instant
Uh-huh.
gratification. But the one thing I realized, I have like 6 TikTok accounts, right?
Gee.
How do you
So
keep
one of
up with
them,
those?
huh?
How can you keep up with them?
I do. I just open up my phone. Look,
So what are you gonna do when TikTok is gone?
it ain't going nowhere, man. It makes too much
Too much
money. When
money. I
there's
know.
business people involved in it, they're going to find a reason not to. It's
Yeah.
a multi, but so like one TikTok account is where I post like video snippets of these, right? And that one, it's mainly like when I scroll, it's like cop shit, right? Because most people who follow me on there are cops. And then there's some Middle Eastern shit, right? Because the other people that follow me are Middle Eastern, right? Because I'm talking about culture and terrorism and stuff like that. But then I have another one. You know what the name? I have like two of them. You know what the name of it is? Dudul Talo.
Whoa.
That's his favorite word.
You know, I seen a license plate.
Dudul Talo.
It says, I don't know if it's a Dudul Talo. I think it said Dudul.
Dudul.
Yeah, I
That's
did.
For those of you who are
Any-
watching, Dudul Talo is a term of endearment.
golden penis.
Golden dingaling, okay?
Ding-a-ling.
And it's something a mother always tells the son as a sign of endearment, like like perfection, right? Ajab dudu taloyo.
The little king, right?
Right.
He's gonna rise up to be a king. I saw it on a car. I saw Dudul, and I think I took a picture and I sent it to him.
Oh,
So
nonstop.
yeah, just to bombard him with Dudul. And so my brother, he lives in Houston too, and he imported a Paycon.
Oh my
He
God.
has a blue Paycon. So he got is Hillman made, right? From England. It's an English car,
Yes.
and it's he I think driver is on the left. And he had it shipped to Houston and restored it.
Really?
Yeah, and he's seen it. So I think there's two in
Yeah.
Houston. There's a blue one and a
No, there's a yellow
yellow
one,
one that says
and
Paycon.
he's always got it on a little trailer
Yeah.
that he takes it places.
Oh wow.
And every time I see it, I want to go and ask him if he's willing to sell it because that'd be a badass.
No,
car.
that guy is on TikTok or not TikTok on Instagram or Facebook or something.
No, that's another guy, but he's also there's more than two.
Oh,
But there's one that I want when I see it. I want to just find where he's at so I can see if he wants to sell it.
Maybe he'll watch the podcast and he'll
Come on
send me a
down.
message.
So that's what I was talking about is putting the Dudul Talo on a Paycon and driving around.
There's one that comes to the Galleria. The license plate on the Mercedes says Pishi.
Pishi?
Pishi. Like kitty.
Wow, man. Let's get into talking about like working with the American society being from like the Middle East. I don't know if you guys ever run into this problem, but when there's something going on overseas, do they like come to you and say, "Hey man, what's going on with this? Hey man, what's going on with this?"
Sometimes they, especially where I'm at, because we got all the agencies at the office, and some of them that don't really know too much about the culture or the current events that are going on, they'll come and try to see if I have any scoop on what's going on or
Right.
how bad it's getting over there. But other than that, nothing really on the outside part. Sometimes you might find someone that just likes to debate, but other than that, it's not anything that's
Talking about debating politics or religion or
politics, current events that are going on. Sometimes religion, but I tell them I don't like to go too much into religion because they'll it starts to turn into where they're trying to convert you from what you
Oh.
are to what they want you.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I've had this conversation with people because when you get into, and every religion has this. When I say every religion, a lot of the religions have it where you do called like evangelism,
yeah,
right? But I think what's happened over the last 20 years, evangelism has turned into like proselytizing, And there's a difference. When you're evangelizing, is you're just introducing the religion, and mostly depending on how you present yourself as a member of that religion, right? Versus proselytizing, which what proselytizing is and has become is me wanting to convert you to my religion, so I'm going to tear yours apart. You see what I'm saying? It's more like I have to
Like
discredit
your
yours.
religion is more superior than anyone else's.
Right. And then what happens, and I see this, and here recently, it's like all over TikTok where you have these, and this is something that people who are watching, if they keep up with it, you'll have like certain people from, let's say, the Islamic religion, right?
In Europe, they're doing
Europe,
that.
like in the UK and all that, and you see it like more of it is from what they call Speaker's Corner in the UK, where they're sitting there and they're taking the Bible and they're tearing apart, trying to discredit the Bible. And so I ask, every once in a while I'll see them on TikTok and I'm in the chat and I'm like, why are you doing this? Well, we want to make sure we're gonna bring him to Islam. And I'm like, bro, let them practice what they want. It's none of your business. You know what I'm saying? But then you see also that from other religions doing that to like Muslims.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And then they get a knife and try to stab the person that's doing it, and then they'll pick up the book, the Quran, and put out the fire.
Yeah.
They hold prayers in the middle of a street, shutting down everything.
That's stupid, man. Just because he says freedom of religion and you can do something, that doesn't mean
And
you
this
can
is
just.
in Europe.
They're doing it here.
No, I know, but over there, they're allowing them to do that to stop everything what other people are doing.
Yeah.
For vehicles to go through, for people to walk through, even on a plane, the guy is praying in the middle of the aisle,
Oh, I saw that.
and
saw that.
they don't know what to do. They don't want to tell him anything. And what they're doing is they're taking advantage of that.
That's what it is they're exploiting the freedom.
Basically, what it is okay. You come over here, right, and you want to force what you had back home, right,
On somebody.
on everybody,
Right.
And
That's
it's
pretty
like,
much you're like being like a low-key ISIS.
People move over
well,
here
I
so
don't
they
know
can
if
have
you
their
would
own
say that
freedom.
because that's a totally. I mean, they're
Minus
yeah.
minus
It's
the
like,
Shamshi and
yeah,
all this
you,
other
you
shit.
got
radicalized view.
or violent, right, and then you got someone that just wants to, and that's just humanity. I mean, it's not
Fundamentalist.
fundamental. They're trying to. Well, they come over here, right? They're basically trying to make us do what
They're doing.
they want us to do, right?
Right.
But we've been practicing this in America for a long time, right?
Right.
It's been Christian nation. People will argue America's not a Christian nation. Well, it started as Christian.
Well, right, because majority of people that
yes.
came here,
Well,
they
it
were.
allows you to be whatever you want. In
Correct.
That's
the
the
US.
whole part of
That's the
freedom
whole part of
religion. Yeah.
freedom.
And that's
yes.
the beauty of it, right? You
Right.
could be Jewish.
Don't force it
Don't
upon
and-
everybody that you think that you're superior than everybody else.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah. No, I see it all the time, and it's kind of one of those fine lines because you're like, okay, yeah, technically, based on law, they have a right to practice however they want, but at the same time, you're not supposed to, like you were talking about, shutting down streets and doing
Yeah,
prayer.
it's not
but now
supposed
you're
to affect
interfering.
interstate commerce.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
you're
it's-
interfering other people's lives. So is
Right.
your rights more superior than someone else's rights and privilege to be able to drive down the street without having to go 4 blocks around and just to get to where
Yeah.
they're going because you chose to come on this street? No, get your ass on the damn sidewalk. At least let the traffic flow.
Well, me and you know that they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, they do it on purpose,
It's
and
not
there's
because like the fate says to do it. They're
you'd be
trying to-
surprised what the messages over here are doing. You attend, like, if you were to attend one, and the next day you attend another one, totally different preaching. Like they try to instill certain things into your head about the superiority of that religion versus Christianity, being someone that's Catholic.
Yeah.
My thing is, I'm gonna be blunt about it, and I was been blunt about it. Is that if you come to America, right, and you don't like what we've been doing, you
Then
need to
leave.
go back.
Then leave.
Go back.
Yeah.
That's
The whole
easy as
purpose
that.
of leaving the countries that we don't want to be in to come over here is to have the freedom to do what freedom we have to exercise whatever religion we have here.
Right.
So
A
You
lot of
come
that.
here legally, you're welcome to come.
yes,
You come here to better America, you're
Live
welcome
in
to
this
stay.
culture.
But if you're here to break the laws and be a criminal and terrorize our people,
Get the hell out.
we're not having that.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean,
yeah, it doesn't matter what
know, I
religion
think-
you are.
I think probably 95% of the Middle Eastern community agrees with that. But then you go back to that whole fear of backlash. That's why nobody says
That's the problem.
Yeah.
No one wants to step up and do. And the other thing is it has to do with politics.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a specific group, let's say someone that's Muslim that comes over here trying to instill that religion onto you if you're Christian. Well, when the politics gets involved, they're going to take the outsider's side more than they would
Yeah.
someone who's
Here.
who's here, and they don't want to have anything to do with that. They're not trying to get into anything like a argument with anyone. They just want to live their life, but these politicians are making it so much worse
Yeah.
by telling them, no, they're. I hate it when they speak up for someone that doesn't need them to speak up for them.
Right.
It's like saying that if I call you a
it
terrorist,
just opened up another
4
sensitive
hour.
part. Like,
We're
yeah,
this
talking
is
about
gonna end up in like
politicians.
a 7-hour
because some of these
podcast.
politicians will sell their mamas. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
yes,
They're
when it
just
has to
there
do
get
with
the
money.
votes.
Yeah, that's exactly
know.
what it is.
Like there was won't speak up and just to get the votes,
Right.
But what's right is right, The founding fathers, the framers, right, of
Right.
America, they always talked about God.
Right.
And then I hear people always say, well, we live in America. That's the beauty of it. It's different between church and state. And I'm like, well, look at $100 bill or $1 bill. What does it say?
Says
in the
there's
back?
God in God we trust.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's all I can say about that.
Well, I think there was a movement trying to get that removed from the dollar bill or from
They
the
were
bills
trying to
too.
they were trying to add someone onto the $50 or $20 bill. I forgot which one it was.
Yeah, of course, Satan is always trying
They're
to
trying to change
take God out of
everything.
everything.
Right.
That's his goal.
They already took down statues.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah, let's start catering to a
There-
specific group
Yes,
while we're vilifying the other 90% who just want to live their freaking life.
yeah, and it's only it has technically it has nothing to do with even one certain group. The politicians are allowing it to happen.
But I think a lot of it has to also do when they wrote the laws and even the Constitution and the amendments. I don't think anybody who was writing them ever thought it would get to this point where it would be redefined and exploited.
Because it
Right.
was written vague. Yeah.
Well, it was written
Yeah, to
vague, but
allow
it
it to
was-
change if they needed to change it.
right, but it was also written in a language where at that time a certain thing meant one thing to
Correct.
everyone. Now a certain thing is now interpreted, and if you look at it from a law enforcement perspective, when you look at like the Ninth Circuit putting out some kind of ruling, they may be discussing the same exact scenario as the Fifth Circuit, but they have a totally different outcome as to how they interpret
Yeah.
the applicable law. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, you're going to have it over there looking at, they call it more open minded. But what happens is you're also diminishing some of the foundational work by being too open minded. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. You could be so open minded that your mind falls out, right?
Exactly.
You're saying by the
Falls
you could be so open minded that your mind falls out, right?
out. Yeah.
Basically, that's the way they want it to be. But the thing is, I don't know if you probably know about this, but there's 5 big corporations that own all the medias,
Yeah.
and these guys dictate what's going to be said.
Yeah.
So we got human beings sitting behind. That's talking about newspaper, the TV, whatever. So you're just being brainwashed, but what they want you to
what
hear
they want you to hear
every day.
Yep.
But it's really not. That's not what's going on the streets. Like you get on Facebook and they show the cop, they show the 10-second of him whooping someone's ass, but they don't go back and show you what really happened.
Right
Right?
before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want to show you what gets the most views.
Views, yeah, dude.
Clicks,
money.
I've had to deal with this shit. Mine was a little bit of a combination of being targeted because I'm a goat herder, right? Somebody in the right position with the right power to try to create problems. And then you got the other part of it with the clickbait, because when I can take a 7 second, 14-second video and twist the narrative based on that 7 second and not show a minute and a half before what happened and the next 13 minutes of what happened after that. So of course it's manipulation. The media literally controls it. So and bringing it to the law enforcement, have you noticed when you look at from law enforcement administration, right? Depending on where you're at, when they don't challenge the media and put them back in their place because they're worried about how it's going to look, that's when the media runs all over them, right? But then you look at Sheriff Wayne Ivey in Florida, or you look at
Oh
Polk
yeah,
County Sheriff.
they're awesome.
Yeah, they
They
like when the media guy says, "Oh, but
they
don't
shut
you
them
think
down
the
quick.
policy? Don't you think the policy?" And there was one I saw like 3 days ago where the sheriff looked at it and says, "This ain't
There's
got nothing
another
to do
sheriff
with."
in Florida, Carmen something.
Are you talking about the like Italian guy?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's got buzz cut.
and he goes out and
Lee County.
yeah, he
Lee
goes
County.
out with SWAT and
Yes.
he
Yes.
Yeah.
gets all
But
the
you,
drug dealers.
when
Yeah,
what happened is when they started doing these press releases, these media guys would get on there and they would start like instigating shit. Well, don't you think that the policy should dictate or whatever? And here recent, like 2, 3 days ago, I had a sheriff look at him and says, "Let me tell you something. My policy ain't going to dictate. This is exactly how things are, and you're not going to twist it around."
Right.
Basically, paraphrasing, basically shut your mouth. We're not
that's
going
why.
to feed into this.
Correct. I would say there's no Democrat or Republican law enforcement. The laws are clear,
It's
black
law.
and white, written.
Yes.
Follow the law.
Right. What it is the media has turned it into where somebody has to get blamed for something.
Correct.
It becomes a blame game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you can show something extravagant, get the clicks, what they call yellow journalism with the headline, right?
It's a win for them.
It's a win for them. And it's the funny thing is people put so much emphasis on the news because here's how manipulation happens.
Let me cut in real quick. What's the greatest trick the devil plays? Deception.
Deception. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah,
That's
it's
what we're doing.
deception. It's deception. And deception is not necessarily lying. You could omit or add, and it's still deception. Because your intent for the person to receive the message is to change their perception of something falsely.
Right.
Right. And you've got you've got like they'll put in like a news report. Well, according to experts, this is this, and this. And then people are like, "Oh, the experts."
And
We're
then
looking at it as
and then when
cops
you
and
look
going,
at who the experts are,
exactly.
they have no clue of what's going on because they've never been in that field.
But not only that, there are no experts.
Exactly.
He takes his opinion and he
Tries to
puts
make
it
it
as
a
a
fact.
third party, as an expert said it. Oh, the expert said it? Let's see his resume. Let's see his resume. You see what I'm saying? So if you look at it, when you read the news, if you said according to anonymous sources or sources say or experts say, if there is not a name that you can research and figure out who it is, this is all conjecture. This is me coming to you and saying, شنیدی این کارو کرد چی یه دکتر میشناسم یه جایی به من گفته که این
Just
داره
like
این
a
کارو
gossip.
میکنه. The fact that I said, and for those of you who are watching who have no clue what the I just said, I said, "Did you hear what so and so did?" And then he's like, "No." And I said, "I had a doctor tell me this because me using the term doctor puts an impression in his mind that someone of noble status who has credibility has said this, because my focus is whatever lie I'm about to tell him, I have to dress it up to make it appear that it's important. So me throwing the doctor is that as a Middle Easterner, I'm making you go, "Oh, doctor gofte," right? When the media, all they got to say is, according to experts, and everybody's like, the expert says something. Who the are these experts?
Do you know actually we're talking about doctors. The one of the greatest doctors in the world was Persian, Abu Ali Sina.
Right.
And they have his hospital everywhere. And rubbing alcohol was discovered by a Persian too.
Right.
Zachariah something.
Right.
He discovered that. But going back to something that it came to mind is, so Republican, Democrat, when they run, right, you could be the best candidate.
Right.
you're not gonna win because you need the slates.
Hmm.
The slates is who gets behind you, and without those slates, you're not gonna win. You could have all the money in the world; it's been proven. And and the thing about those slates is basically you gotta listen to what they tell you. They come to you and say, "I like you, but you're gonna do what we tell you."
Right.
So they get that. Well, the machine comes behind you on both sides, right?
Right.
But now what you're seeing with the new president, he broke all the odds of it
Right.
because he came as an outsider, said, "I don't want your slates," basically, right?
Right.
And now because PACs were able to give a lot of money, and I'm not saying like PACs didn't give him money, but when he first started, he was an outsider guy, like
Right.
he wasn't part of the establishment.
Right.
And what I mean with the establishment is with the slates, they
Yes.
dictate, and all that is, it's starting to people trying to get out there, and now they're like, hey, it's time to have a different prospect of you. We don't need only attorneys to talk good because
Right.
they could talk good all day long, but
Right.
I could talk good all day. But what are my actions, right?
Right.
And that's what I want to see, like actions, like
You don't want to just hear hot air coming out of people's
correct.
mouth. You want actions to take its
Hmm.
place. Yeah, exactly.
And in law
Yeah.
enforcement, that's the same thing. Is in leadership roles.
Yeah.
The thing is, when I started law enforcement, it was different. Like you couldn't just go to a supervisor and you had to go chain of command, right?
Right.
Uh, a lot of those things are changing now. Like the new generation, I mean, they don't even want to work. Like I heard this could be what is that?
So she
He
said,
said, she said, but it's true. I mean, the kid you start out 18, 19, you could become like a detention guy somewhere, right?
Right. Right.
And like, oh, you gotta work extra hours or whatever. And the mom was like, I know mom comes or dad comes pick him up, and they're like, well, let's go. No, my boss said I gotta work some more. And then the mom says, "Just tell I'm gonna quit." So he goes back, and my mom said, I gotta quit.
Really?
Yeah, this is
yeah,
this is the
Are you
well,
serious?
yeah, or if they offer certain overtime positions that they want it to be mandatory, like once a week, you got certain ones that'll say no, uh, I'm not gonna do it, and then they say when they tell them that they're gonna get written up, so what? And
Okay.
they don't care. They'll just go and get another job somewhere else.
everybody's very sensitive. Like my wife says, everybody's very sensitive. Like the world, you can't say anything now. Like
I'm gonna say it in Farsi so all the Iranian speakers know that. Chup tukunam and koskola. Only the Iranians who are watching are gonna know what I'm talking about. Because you know damn well every Iranian is like, that's right.
yeah, like you gotta.
And the leadership can only do so much, passing down what they want done, but it's still going to be from the bottom that goes up.
People are getting in law enforcement, probably 80%.
Don't
They're
have
not the
business.
same. They're not the
No,
same as before.
we got ones that they're afraid to do something. They're afraid to back you up. Yeah, they there's a
The
Is that what you're saying?
camaraderie, it's not what it
so
used to be. And that's not only law enforcement.
Yeah, it's
And
just
I didn't mean
society
to
in
cut you
general.
in, but it's society. It's in the nurses world, teachers world. I mean, look at the poor teachers, man. Their parents are dictating, like like the kid. These teachers, I mean, they get no respect from the students and the parents.
yeah,
Bro.
and then if the teacher defends themselves,
They're in the news.
oh no,
Oh, they're
they
in the
get
news and then they're getting charges filed on them.
Yeah,
Bro, I can tell you about getting freaking paddled.
man.
Ooh-wee.
When I was a
yeah.
kid, like I'd say back in Iran, like
Well, I got paddled
your
when I was in
teacher.
Alabama, man.
I got
I didn't
I
even know
got
how to speak
hit with a
English.
ruler here.
You got what?
I got hit with a ruler here when
A ruler?
yeah, those yardsticks.
Oh, the big ones.
Yes,
Oh.
and it wasn't the ones
You
that would
deserved
hit you once and they break. These
You say you
had some
deserved it.
yeah, but no, at that time, if we were to make fun of someone or if we push someone back then, or our grades were low or we weren't getting something,
Yeah.
oh, they put the yardstick to your hands or to your backside.
Oh yeah.
And now, oh no, it's everything has to do with child abuse. Everything
Oh
has
yeah,
to.
bro. Let me tell you a
There is no
story.
discipline
Let me
at
tell
all.
you. Let me tell you a story about what happened to me the first year I was in school in in Coleman, Alabama. Okay, I didn't know how to speak English. My dad sent me to school and told the teachers he's just going to sit in the back of the class and he's just going to listen, right? And then you send his homework with him on a sheet of paper at home, and then I would have to use the English Farsi translator to figure out what I was supposed to do, right? And anyway, so I'm sitting in the back and I couldn't talk to anybody, right? I couldn't talk to anybody. And what ends up happening is this kid hands me a note. I can read English, but I don't understand what I'm reading, right? So he hands me a note and it says like raise your hand and say it out loud to the teacher. And I said, okay. So I raised my hand. And I have this piece of paper open in my
What did it say?
I read out you I have no clue what it means. Right?
Oh man, you brought me another.
At the time, the teachers had these little boxes in the room where they would buzz the secretary in the principal's office, and she goes, "Brr," she hears that thing, and I can't understand what it's saying, and then she goes, "Principal." Principal. I knew what principal is because when my dad had took me to the school, we had to have a meeting with the principal. And I remember reading his name and it says Principal. You know what I'm saying? Right? So I'm like, so, and she takes the note and she tells me to hold it and give it to the principal. So I walk across the yard. I go into the principal's office. I walk in, the secretary's there. And I can't remember what his name is. I remember his name. I said, Mr. So and so. And she's like, yeah, go. And the door is open. So I go in and I said, I hand it to him. He reads it and he's saying shit. I don't understand what he's saying. So then he says, put your hands on the table. I put my hands on the table. He said, no, 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 stand up. So I stand up, put my hands on the table. He said, look over there. Like he had a diploma hanging behind his head. So I'm looking at the diploma. Pow! I get hit by something on my ass. Dude.
Oh, that was the
Oh, it
they
scared
paddled.
the
Yeah, I
shit.
remember.
It scared the shit out of me.
So
Like,
I remember, like,
dude, this paddle looked like a damn boat paddle. Right? It was like that wide, and it had like a baseball bat thing on it.
boy,
Man, I had to get 3 licks, bruh. I could not sit for 3 days, and I had no clue what the hell was going
you
on.
learned your lesson though,
Well,
huh?
hold
You
on.
won't read
He
out the
ca-
note again.
He calls my dad's office. My dad leaves the office, all his patients in the room, and comes to the school.
And then he whooped your ass.
No, and he says, what happened? And I'm like, من نمیدونم اینا اینجور به من گفته اینو بگو من رفتم به معلمه گفتم اینا من فرستادن تو برم آفیس اینو مرده رو ببینم. So my dad reads it. And he just looks at me and he just shakes his head and goes, and he's talking to the principal. I don't know what they're saying. I find out later he's telling the principal, I understand you whooping his ass. He doesn't even know what he read. You know what I'm talking about? But that's how strict they were that they wouldn't even like consider, you don't even know what the hell you're saying. You're still getting the freaking paddling, right? Now that I look at it and I'm like, can you imagine that happening at like Spring Branch ISD? The
Oh man,
principal,
that'd
the
be that'd be
secretary,
on CNN and Fox and everything, right?
and the principal and the secretary and the assistant principal. Next thing you know, you got official oppression charges, you've got freaking child abuse charges, and then you got conspiracy to commit child abuse charges
Yeah.
because everybody else knew what's going on. Back then, shit, you got your ass whooping, even
Well,
if
the
you're
problem
wrong.
is they also have these people that say that they're psychologists, that kids that get beat or disciplined, I should say,
They're activists.
that get disciplined at a young age turn out to be violent when they get older.
Really?
I was like, I got my ass beat, slapped, uh, hit with a wooden spoon. I ain't doing that shit again. I
Well,
learned my
there's a
lesson.
difference between child abuse and child dis.
Now, if you bruise the person all over their body, yes. But if you're only hitting them in one certain spot,
Wasn't
one
there
or
like
two
a safe
times,
zone, like from the bottom of your butt cheek all the way up to the lower, like the
no,
top part
well,
of your butt
Well, I
cheek?
know the penal code says, not no deadly force, but
right, it has to be a reasonable amount of force for disciplining. But nowadays, reasonable amount has turned into just child abuse.
because remember, with
It's
the law,
redefined now.
Yes.
It's
the
redefined.
the
And it's
law
not even in the law now.
is innocent to proven guilty.
Yeah,
But with CPS is guilty until proven innocent.
CPS is awful.
That's child protective service. That's what
Yeah,
CPS
I
for
know.
people that don't know. Whatever.
Dude, I remember back in the day, we couldn't get CPS to come out and do shit.
The same thing. It's still the same right now.
But now you got a bunch of in any position you got activists, right? That some of them need to be a therapist. Like you got a
Some of them
therapist.
need therapy. Are they that dumb? What's wrong
Well, the
with these
problem
people?
is what they're seeing on news, on TV. That's what's feeding them all the info. So
It's not reality. Let's
yeah,
say what
it's like what we see firsthand will never be televised and given out as a factual statement on any of the news medias. They want it just for their views, and they'll change it around
To get the clicks.
to get the clicks.
You know, it's funny, we were talking about that clicks. And people don't realize, they're like, why doesn't the media tell the truth? Well, you like you were talking about the corporations, right? That on the upper end, with people giving them information to change people's perceptions, right? Politically or, socially or whatever the case is. You have that aspect. You have the news station itself because they generate money based on commercial sales, correct? So the more views they get at 10 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news, five
Right,
o'clock news, and how many clicks they get on their Facebook posts and
right. The
their
commercials
insights
they
on their,
get more money.
they get more money because
Yeah,
it jacks up
that's the same thing with
the price
YouTube.
for the
How many
commercials.
times you see somebody standing around looking at an officer get their ass whooped, but they're videotaping it?
videotaping, right? Because what it does is it brings more views, but for a TV station, it drives up the price of commercials.
Right. So the other thing that they also do is that, let's say you say that the suspect was the one that was involved in a road rage that shot somebody. Now they have to add the word alleged in there. The alleged suspected shooter
Why are they
in the
alleged?
road rage. They're adding that in everything now.
Alleged?
Everyone
Alleged.
like basically you're not guilty, but remember in the Harris County is one of the biggest counties. It's in Texas. You have to call the district attorneys to take charges.
Right.
So they have to, you worked in Harris County, so you have to have probable cause.
Yeah.
So it's not just I made up the story. I'm arresting you. There's witness statements. There's eyewitness. There's
Yes.
credibility that this person did it. So allegedly, they just want to say that because they wanted deception again. Deception, right? I know you did it. Somebody he's seen you do it.
There's a videotape
The
of the gas
videotape
station
is
that
there.
you freaking did it.
You're guilty.
The alleged.
So
But
the
then,
alleged is just to make it softer,
yeah, soft.
so you don't hurt the person's feelings.
Yeah, soft feelings. Yeah.
Everything has to do with people's feelings now.
That's what.
So if I get offended by you calling me, say you call me a terrorist, it can turn into a shit show because I took offense to that.
Oh wow. Well, I mean, I did get called a goat herder and a camel jockey, and
And it all depends on where you're at. So if it's a area where they're more in tune with people they adhere more to their feelings than to actual facts. Good luck
so
with
so
them.
so basically, what we're saying is Dallas, Houston, Austin, and San Antonio has gone to shit. It's not Texas anymore. until you go 50 miles out of town, then you're back in
Yeah,
Texas.
when you're out of yeah, because is becoming really bad.
Austin
The
has just become San Francisco Bay
the
Area, just relocated to Austin.
the DA over there is more focused on going after cops than anything else.
Wow.
I think he stepped down, but I don't know if he's still there.
Yeah, that whole thing, that whole Austin area started going to shit about the
Oh,
mid 90s when Dale moved there because all the Silicon Valley people moved to Austin.
And that's what's happening. We're getting a lot of people from California moving to Texas.
Yep. And they're starting to change it. And it's
Yep.
funny because, you know, I've heard people say, especially like around Dallas Fort Worth, is you left California because it was so messed up because y'all messed it up. Now you're coming to Texas and
And you're
messing up
trying to mess
Texas.
it up here.
Yeah, that's why they say, "Don't California my Texas." Have you heard that saying? I see
Yeah.
that all the time. Don't California my Texas. But it's crazy, man.
leave your crazy policies over there.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why, like Texas, our legislators get together every 2 years, and they have 3 months. They make up the laws, and if it don't pass, they come back the next 2 years, and they get paid like 9, 10, 12,000, something like that every 2 years. But California, they have every day these lawmakers come to office, and they get paid year round, and all they do is make laws because they got
Yeah,
nothing else to do.
yeah.
They're trying to pass a law here, and each time it's been
Shut down.
shut down. That if I was to break into your house,
Uh-huh.
you let me steal what I want to steal. When you find the opportunity to run out the back door, you run out, and then you can contact your insurance company to reimburse you for what they took. Yes. So you can't.
Unicorns.
So they basically saying you can't shoot someone breaking into your house. Well, if they're in your house,
Night during the
technically you can,
nighttime.
but
In Texas, it's during
now
the
if they're on your
nighttime.
property, it's a little different as far as the outside. But when they break into the house, it's a different story.
Like a home invasion.
Yeah.
But
Um,
it's just they have to have a weapon daytime, nighttime. Nighttime, you're allowed
Nighttime, you
just
can't, you won't be able to see if they have a weapon or not. So it kind of, um, you have to make a decision whether or not you want to use deadly force or not.
Wow.
But the thing is, a lot of, like I said again, the slates behind this, the machine picks these people to put in those slots. So they look for the person that hate cop or have a resentment against cops because they've been picked on. They think they've been picked on, but they have to see what they done.
And it's
What
not just California; it's also New York. It's also happening in the Northeast. You've seen the Boston, Massachusetts mayor.
I don't see, let me tell you, I
He's
look at it from a
anti-police.
lens of a Middle Eastern, right? And that's how I try to look at it. And then all I see is the way the culture of the Middle East is very conservative,
correct.
Right,
right?
and they're
It
allowing.
doesn't matter if you're Jew, if you're Muslim, if you're Baha'i, if you're
Christian.
Zoroastrian, if you're Christian, it doesn't matter what ethnicity you come from. There is a core cultural uh, similarity between everyone, which is, I wouldn't say traditionalist, but more very, very conservative, correct? But then I see places like Chicago, New York, Boston, Detroit, where it's got the biggest population of Middle Easterners, and then they're jumping on board with Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. And I'm like, wait, what happened to the traditional Middle Eastern values when you're over here saying, yeah, we want to screw up the traditional values? Because, I mean, I don't get it. I don't get it. Because my question to the Middle Easterners who support this crap is open up your door, let them come into your house. Take them in, start feeding them.
There was
Tell me how many Middle Easterners say, okay, come on, you can stay in our room. That's not going to have zero. They're going to be like, no, 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 no. Government have to pay that. No, no, no. Don't start shit and then have government try to clean it up for you.
Yeah.
But I don't understand this because I'm expecting Middle Easterners to go, whoa, 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 whoa. We came over here to have a foundational life with good morals. We gotta stop doing this shit. But they're in the middle of it and like instigating more. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
There was a president, and you could probably Google it. I think it was Andrews. But basically, what it said is, when you're young, you vote liberal with your heart, but when you're old, you vote conservative. If you vote, it says if when you're young, you vote liberal because of your heart,
Right.
but if you vote liberal when you're older, you don't have a brain, basically.
Right, because when you get older, you become more conservative because you have experienced the ups during the young
Yeah.
and you have learned from it. But then I'm seeing these, when they were doing this whole Tesla thing, where they were protesting in front of Tesla, you know who I expected? I expected pink hair, blue hair, piercings across temple on this side, I don't know, like crazy shit, right? I'm looking at the ones in Florida and it's 65, 70-year-old white folks. And I'm
Yeah.
like, what the is wrong with y'all? Not forget the Tesla part. It's the fact that why are you like protesting with shit that you should know why things are going on? Usually older people are more fiscally
Correct.
conservative, right? So I'm thinking to myself, are you guys just that freaking delusional and gone into the left field where you don't even understand numbers at your age? You know what I'm saying? And it's not like poor people or disadvantaged people. These are rich people that are like educated people who are driving Porsche Cayennes. And I'm like, how'd you buy
That's
that
because they
car?
have so much. Some of these people have so much money, right? And they don't even know reality, right?
Yeah, because they live in a
Yeah,
freaking
they
unicorns
live in,
and
yeah, they
rainbows
see
freaking
all,
lifestyle.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. They have so much money that
They never
it's not
experience.
affecting their pockets every day.
Right.
Like when you have all these people working in a bureaucracy, right? And there's no productivity, and someone goes in and says, as a business person, let me look at what's going on. Let's bring the numbers down and see where we could cut the fat, right?
Right.
Trim the fat.
That's simple business.
Yeah, business 101 is like, and same thing with trade is like, if we buy 500 billion a year and they buy 150 billion a year from us, that's almost 3 times trade deficit. And then our companies are all in China at the same time, right?
Right.
So they're getting the back end with our companies there,
Low
and
cost on labor.
well, that's another, that brings it to another deal. But I'm just saying, as what we're losing is the companies that are here to pay, to employ our workers are not here, and then at the same time we're buying everything from them, so they're profiting, or
Right.
the country over there is profiting, right?
Right.
Well, that's not even trade.
No, that's
But
not.
when the president says, "Hey, this is what's going on," when you have even trade,
Right.
everybody gets like, the people that I'm talking about that have so much money that don't live in reality. They get up and say something, and then the little guys that don't been brainwashed that don't know anything about business numbers,
They don't.
they just get up and say, "Yeah, let's follow this guy. Yeah,
Yeah. Something to jump on the bandwagon about.
yeah."
Something to jump on. You know what? And I'll say this, and
And
we should probably end it because we got to eat.
So I want to go back and because I butchered that quote, right. It was actually from Winston Churchill. And he says, if you're not a liberal when you're 25, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative by the time you're 35, you have no brain.
Right. It's
But
true.
yeah,
I can understand, teenage years, adolescent years, and then you get into the mid 20s, you're still kind
so
of learning the world. But by the time you're 35, you should have your shit together, which includes brain, right?
and a lot of
and
the
if that
problem is
that
in
hurts
school.
someone's feeling, I'm not worried, because if you're feeling bad today, that will pass, and if you're feeling good, that
Hey,
will change too.
it's pretty simple. If they get their feelings hurt, exit, go to the
It's
next
not about
video.
feelings.
Yeah.
So the problem is schools are now becoming subjective rather than objective.
Objective. That's right.
Same thing with law enforcement.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, after about 2000,
15 is when it started to
started
start
going
going
to
down.
shit. Yeah.
Yes.
But it really started at around, when the Ferguson thing happened?
2020. 2020.
No, Ferguson.
That was
Ferguson was
well,
2016, 2015, wasn't it?
no, at first I think it was in 13.
20.
It was it was
When was Obama in office?
it was in 08, but there was one uh in Florida, I think.
Trayvon
Trayvon Martin.
Martin.
No, okay, so go back
And
before.
he was a security guard. He wasn't even a police officer.
Right, but let me tell you, it actually that was 2014, the Ferguson. But right before Ferguson,
It was Martin. I think it was
right,
Trayvon
but
Martin.
even before that, when Obama first got into office, either his professor or his preacher or somebody had gone to their house and they had locked their keys out, and it was a black dude. And
Oh,
the
and
cops
cops
came
saw.
in and they didn't know who he was because he had left his wallet or something. They didn't know who he was. And the neighbors called and said, looked like somebody's breaking into the house. Right. So they didn't know who he was. And he was like, oh, it's my house. And you can't confirm that as a cop. Some dude standing in front of somebody's, multi-million-dollar house and saying, this is my house. And they're like, okay, where's your ID? Let me see your ID. Let me see your address. Oh, I don't have it. You got the keys? No, I don't have it. It looks like you're breaking into the house. Right. He stood up in front of the presidential seal and he said, what those cops did were stupid. When he said that, I literally saw a change in the dynamics of how people viewed cops. And he come under so much fire by all the police unions where he had to take that detective, and I can't remember what city it was. It was in food's here. The food is here. So the he had to walk it back and apologize, and then thank you. He had to walk it back and apologize, and then bring the cop to the White House and sit on the back porch on the White House and drink beer with him to try to change it. But by that time, it was already too late
Yeah,
because once he started that negative thing,
he
it
made
was
a
like bah, 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 and all these civil rights people just
the division started at that time,
yes,
and it just was like a ripple effect,
it did because right
and it's
after
still
that,
going.
yeah, that set the tone for people to say because they felt empowered because the
Right.
president said it, and then now
And
every
then
time
criminals took advantage of it. If you're a
yes,
criminal, you're like, man, that's the best time to go
Drew,
against police.
I got friends that work up there in East Texas, like interdiction, and said that right after that happened, they were just stopping people like on the street for speeding, and they would walk up and it'd be like a black girl, and the black girl would be like, "You can't stop me anymore. Our president is black now. You're cops. We know who you are." And he's like, "What are you talking about, dude? You're doing like freaking 65 in a 25-mile-an-hour freaking school zone. What do you mean? You're not above the law." You know
You
what I
see those, you see like those sovereign citizens. You pull over them, they're like, "We're traveling. Like, give
Yeah,
us your
we're not
name. We don't
driving.
have to." Next thing you know, the troopers breaking their windows,
I
pulling
had
them
3 of
out.
those
The
that I
sovereign
had
citizen,
to.
I never dealt with sovereign
I pulled
citizen.
3 of them out.
Yeah, see, I never dealt with sovereign citizen because I did very much a lot of
Lucky
targeting.
you
I
that
did a
you
lot
never.
of targeting,
You have to be patient too, because if you they do say certain things that starts to get under your skin too.
Well,
Uh,
I never dealt with the sovereign citizens, but I'll tell you what what I did notice was and and people will start seeing it more and more. You know, in what 27 years I worked, I stopped a lot of Middle Eastern people. You know what I'm saying? And not because I was trying to figure out are they terrorists. No, it's because, dude, I live in BFE with a bunch of rednecks, right? Every once in a while, I like to stop somebody that's from our culture just to say, hey, you do exist. I'm not the only one here, right? But it wasn't always the people driving through, right? But what I did notice is when all this shit started with this whole jumping on the bandwagon and the whole anti-police stuff, all of a sudden now I'm seeing like Middle Eastern people being anti-police, and I'm like, what? You don't want law and order? What is it? You're supposed to be
yeah, but
conservative.
when someone either is trying to rob them or break into their house, first thing they want to do, they call 911. Where's the police at?
Yeah,
Look, I don't care what race you are, what color you are. If you're a good law-abiding citizen, you know cops are going to be there to help you, and they're
exactly,
there to do their job. If you're on the
exactly.
criminal side, you break the law and you want to get away with it. What's the what's the best time to stand up and say, "Hey, yeah, it's the time now. When he said,
You're
when you're
exploiting the
down, when
situation.
someone's down, it's time to kick him, right?
Exactly. And that's what's happened, dude. And that's what's happened. And then you've got, dude, this is good. We're gonna have to do another episode
Absolutely, because I
to
mean,
just,
we could go for hours,
dude, we could talk about that with police work, but
Yeah.
then we could literally get into the whole Middle Eastern thing. You know what I'm saying? Because and I'll end it with this. Do you have anything to add? Did you want to say anything? Because I know you're ready to munch. Did you already eat all your soup?
No,
Just
no.
kidding.
There's
I
no,
have
there's not
the
much
over
in there.
there.
Yeah.
I have these over there. It's like yalla, yalla مخوایم بخوریم.
Sean doesn't stop talking.
Where's the noon sangak?
Noon saying
Yeah.
Barbari.
Barbary. I was showing him Barbary earlier when I took him to Phoenicia, you know, all the bread that they have over there. And he's like, which one is yours? And I said, well, that's the Palestinian one. That's the one that they put the, hummus and falafel. They cut it open. I said, this is the Iraqi one. This is the Persian one. And he's like, oh my God, they got so much stuff
But
over
it's
here.
all good too.
And my wife, she's like, you're supposed to eat this Mexican food with tortillas. Put some tortillas. I'm like, no, I want my pita bread. I'll put it on there because without the pita bread, I'm not getting full,
You
or
know,
the rice.
the funny thing is, Mexican culture and Iranian culture
Very
is very
similar.
alike.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to tell you, Mexican culture, Iranian culture, Arabic culture, right? Not linguistically wise, but traditions wise.
Right. It's
You know what
very,
I'm saying?
very
Very
close.
fundamentally
They're close
conservative.
family, kids.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
That's
and
why
I
you
think,
see a lot of them. Like, if your kids don't get married, usually they stay with you with the
Right.
parents
right,
until they get married. They move out.
right. Yeah, same thing.
And that's another thing about Spanish culture and Middle Eastern culture. We care for our parents when they get older.
Dude, that's
Yes, there is no nursing home crap.
Do nursing home and stuff.
Yeah.
We
Because
take
We're
care
gonna-
of
you haven't seen what they. Well, I'm sure you've seen what they do in the nursing
Oh
homes.
yeah, yeah. But we're gonna have to do another one and focus it just on the culture part. You know, this would be like a part one of probably
Like
3 or
three or
4.
four, yeah.
3 or 4, you know what I'm saying? Because between the 3 of us and the next time if we get the other guy in, and he'll obviously add to it. But I think if we do this, because my goal is obviously number one is to show people that not every person from the Middle East that comes over here is trying to fucking destroy this country. Now we do know that we have our certain groups that are fanatics that are going against government and trying to cause problems. You know what I'm saying? And then we have our I call them the little delusional uh cosjols, you know what I'm saying? I'm
Yeah.
trying not to say
live in a bubble.
they live in a
But some of them,
bubble.
like they have a lot of money and they just
Well, then
never.
then you also have the ones who are like extreme fundamentalists. They're
Correct.
trying to exploit the system. You know what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? But then they're getting so much coverage where your average person thinks we're all the same. You know what I'm saying?
Because of what they see on TV,
Because of what they see on TV, right?
and that's
So
exactly what's portrayed
if-
every time.
if we could get KPRC to come and do a video, like a news coverage with us, having come over here and spent so many years serving law enforcement, that would give the normal Americans a different perspective that we're not over here just trying to go out there and protest and tear down signs. Dude, you mean to tell me you go to the Capitol and you're going to deface Capitol statues and put Hamas is here? F you and f Hamas, because as far as I'm concerned, you're the first person. The hell with deportation. Your bitch ass needs a fucking Gitmo, and you need to lose a few fucking fingernails in order to realize that's not what you do here. You want to be a retard? Go to Aleppo. Go to freaking join ISIS. Okay, at least over there when you get a.
And they don't
Bushak
even
in
know
you-
all the facts of what's going on
But-
over there. They just start going off by what their friends are telling them here.
But there's a
Yes.
lot of paid actors too. There's a lot.
Well,
of,
right. I'm talking about the Middle Easterners because when you look at all those guys collectively, about 80% are just these kids who are.
Where was that? Was it in New York where the NYPD had the Palestine patch?
No. That was in
New Jersey?
yeah. It's
They're putting patches like a law enforcement.
yeah. You have and there's nothing wrong with you. I was married to a Palestinian for 8 years. Good people, but you're wearing a police uniform representing the U.S.
Rather than being objective, you're being subjective
Okay.
to one side.
So here's and that's probably because this will actually get us to set up for the segue into the next one. We come over here, we bust our ass. You're in doing special operation. People can't see your face. They can't pick up your voice because you do special operation stuff and you're doing shit that, you know, people have to have TSSCI clearance in order to understand what you're involved in, right? You're over here, you've done so many, you've retired, you're going back working part-time, we're giving back to the community, and then you have numbnuts that are wearing a American police uniform, which the only flag you're supposed to wear is the American flag, and you're running around with a Palestinian flag. Hey, you know what? Wear that shit when you're off duty. Good enough. Do not represent
The
American
department.
police with a flag, no matter who it
Of
belongs
another
to,
country.
of another
Yeah.
country. If I go to McAllen or I go to San Antonio and I see an Officer Rios and he's got a Mexican patch and a Mexican flag, I'm going to kick his ass across the Rio Grande River. So if you love that shit, go back, bitch. Because while you're on this side, you're going to wear that American flag because you are in the United States. Now, you're off and you want to have Hijo de Mexico in the back of your truck. Hey, that's fine. But you know what? You ain't going to take Hijo de Mexico and stick it on a tax exempt Tahoe that owns by the sheriff's office, because that motherfucker was an Hijo de Mexico. I don't give a shit who's driving it. That represents the American taxpayers. So you know what? I have a problem with that, and I'm Middle Eastern. You know what I'm saying? And I'm sure every other Middle Eastern cop has a problem with it.
If
Well,
we
why
if
are
we were
doing
to
it?
put the Iranian flag, what do you think they're going to say?
Oh my God.
oh,
Well, we're going to have to make sure that it's not the new Iranian flag. It's going to have to
Yeah.
be the old Iranian flag.
with the lion and the
Yeah. So I guess we'll end it because the food's here, huh? And then we'll pick it up at
well,
the
the
next
salad's
time.
here.
You know, but before we end
It's
it,
already 9?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to have to shut it
God
down.
bless America and
God bless America.
Texas.
That's right. Hell yeah. Hats off to the United States. And you know what? If you come to Texas, don't bring your California mentality here with you.
Keep it over there.
Keep it over there. You know?
Or don't come.
Don't come. All right.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Shawnee, for having us.
Thank you, man. I enjoyed it, and we'll pick it up for sure.
Definitely.